He finally made it, the CEO of Korea's biggest company, a dream he chased for decades. But fate had other plans. On the very day of his greatest achievement, he died. But that wasn't the end. He wakes up, alive again, but not in the same life. This time, he's reborn into a poor, struggling family that can't even afford clean clothes. Now stripped of everything, he must rise from rock bottom, again. This is a story of power, pain, and an impossible comeback, and how one man plans to reclaim his empire from scratch. But here's the twist. His old family exists in this new world, and they don't even know who he is. Will he reach the top once more, or lose everything again? Please stay tuned into the story and find out.
Right in the buzzing heart of Seoul, the skyscraper loomed like a flex. Inside, the bedroom TV buzzed with breaking news. The shareholder meeting to determine the chairman of the Samjeon Group, one of the top 3 conglomerates in the country, has just concluded after 13 hours. After an intense meeting, the next chairman of Samjeon Group has been decided as CEO John Song-guk. Cue the flashing lights, camera shutters going off like fireworks. Standing dead center was a sharp-looking man, soaking it all in. John Song-guk grinned at the screen. Yeah, that's him on TV. No drama, no dirt, just pure grind. He let out a hearty laugh, full of pride. He didn't just want the win, he wanted the applause too. Deserved every bit of it in his book. Man worked for it. Now he was the king of Samjeon. Dude had hustled for this. Books? Nailed it. Gym? Regular. Studied abroad. Kept his bonehead siblings in check. Cleaned up his uncle's dumpster fire. And didn't let his arranged marriage partner stir the pot. He played the game clean and sharp. Built a shiny image the public lapped up like whipped cream. His face, all over fan feeds. Now here he was, clinking the rim of the most expensive wine bottle money could buy, vibing with the taste of payoff. All that grind, just cashed in. Just as he whipped out his phone, ready to axe a few underperformers for sport, something off hit him, like a glitch in the Matrix. His body went weird. Chest tightened. Panic slammed in. Before he could even curse, boom, hit the floor. His heart was throwing a full-blown tantrum. Breathing? Out the window. He remembered his grandfather, Samjeon's original boss, who dropped dead from the same damn thing. Jeon had promised himself he wouldn't go out like that. But fate's a funny little punk. Darkness creeped in, and it was lights out. When he blinked back to life, a voice hit his ears. Hey, come on, now my son. Wait, son? Suddenly he was in someone's arms. A baby's body. Squishy, warm, soft, definitely not 183 centimeters of gym-hardened CEO. He touched his cheeks, marshmallow mode. Panic set in hard. What the hell? He screamed. Not just any scream. Angry baby levels of meltdown. Around him, a cramped room in a rundown neighborhood. Bed as old as time. His hands were mini. His legs, tiny stubs. Yet someone just called him. Song-guk. His mom, Kim So-young, just 21, looked at him with sparkly eyes, muttering how her baby boy was already a heart stealer. His dad, Jeon Ji-sung, only 23, looked like he just won the baby jackpot. They were swooning. He was not. He sat there, absorbing the horror. This was real. No mansion, no tailored suits, no 10-figure net worth, just dust, peeling paint, and that awful formula milk smell. Lucky, you say? He mumbled. Well, tried to. Instead, he spat the nipple out with vengeance. Dad blinked. Huh? What's wrong, buddy? John wanted to yell. What's wrong? Bro, I had abs. I lifted 500 on the big 3. I was built like a Greek god. Now I'm a 3-head tall squish ball. He remembered everything. Prestige, muscles, money. The legend that was him. Now, just a soft, helpless blob with rich parents swapped for a broke couple with a whole lot of love but zero resources. Both were orphanage kids with nothing but each other. Earlier, he was sipping luxury wine worth more than some people's rent. Now, a dusty bottle of formula. But damn, the formula smacked. The body knew what it wanted. Before he could act tough again, instincts took over. He grabbed the bottle like a champ. First thing you learn as a baby? Feeding time ain't a joke. Both parents were melting over their good boy, all heart eyes and baby talk. Dad leaned in to plant a kiss on Song-guk's cheek, but the moment lip met squish, the baby CEO flinched. Gross. Full body cringe. Affection between two men? Not his vibe. Dying on the peak day of his power run and respawning as a baby? Straight up absurd. But the real headache? These two people. Way too affectionate, drowning in cheese. It was uncomfortable, a weird aching feeling he couldn't shake, having parents. Something John Song-guk had never known. In his past life, his parents were ghosts in expensive clothes, always buried in work. They dumped the younger siblings on him like it was his second job. And trust, those siblings were wild units, walking disasters. The injustice of it all hit him like a truck. He bawled his lungs out, red-faced and furious. Dad tilted his head. Oh, sleepy after the meal? No, Song-guk wanted to scream. I'm furious, not tired. But babies don't get the final say. His eyelids betrayed him. Boom. Out like a light. Second thing you can't fight in a baby's body? Sleep, obviously. While Mini Song-guk dozed off, Dad finally got a breather. He stretched, yawned, shuffled to the TV, and clicked it on. Needed some noise. The screen lit up with breaking news. Samjeon chairman John Jushin bribery scandal over luxury gift boxes. Cut to an old man in a wheelchair looking tired but proud. Bribery allegations have been raised against Samjeon Group's chairman, John Jushin. Today, the prosecution began its investigation, with Chairman John Jushin appearing in person for questioning. That name hit Song-guk like cold water. John Jushin. His eyes flew open. No delay. He shot up, sitting straight like a grown man. Both parents blinked. Did he just sit up? On his own? But Song-guk had his reason. The man on that screen, his late grandfather. Alive, real, in this timeline. Little Song-guk plopped himself right in front of the TV, eyes glued. The news was rolling out details of the infamous Apple Box bribery case. Chairman John Jushin of the Samjeon Group has been accused of bribing politicians using boxes disguised as Apple gifts. He blinked, then stared harder. His tiny hands clenched the edge of the mat. That's him. His late grandfather, the Lion of Samjeon, alive and well. On TV, no less. Shock flooded him, followed by a quiet storm of memories. This exact scene, this headline, the chaos. He knew it all. Year 10 of his past life. That's when it happened. His grandfather got dragged into the scandal, blamed, slandered, crucified by the media. They painted Samjeon as nothing but a den of corruption, a dirty empire greased with bribes. It was garbage, of course, a power play. Enemies smelled blood and went in for the kill. He remembered how Grandpa called him, a scrawny 10-year-old, over and told him to push his wheelchair through the press crowd. A total PR stunt, sure. But for Song-guk, it was his first act on the big stage. The moment he stepped into the world's spotlight. That day, everyone saw him, John Song-guk, heir to the empire. But now, watching the screen, his heart dropped. It wasn't him pushing the wheelchair. It was John Tae-guk, his idiot younger brother. Face tight with nerves, jaw clenched, hands on the handles of the chair like he belonged there. That brat. In the old timeline, he'd been sent abroad to study and ended up learning how to party, snort and waste fortunes. A full-blown disaster in human form. And now he was taking his spot. Being a baby? Whatever. Time travel? Weird, but fine. But losing everything. His legacy, his rightful throne. Again? Hell no. The rage boiled over. He let out a raw, angry cry that shook the tiny room. A baby's wail, yeah, but it was loaded with fury. Late at night, the lights dimmed and the cheap heater hummed faintly. His mom walked in, warm smile on her face, holding a tiny cup of freshly made apple juice. But Song-guk wasn't having it. He smacked her hand away without a second thought. His glare, ice cold. His mood, absolute storm. He didn't want interruptions. Not now. His mom looked worried, stepping back a little. Just then the door creaked open. His dad came in, wearing that proud grin like he hit the jackpot. Guess what? Boss gave me all the leftover meat today, he said, holding up a plastic bag like a trophy. Dude was glowing. Being a chef at the nearby jockbowl joint wasn't glamorous, but free meat, big win. He was ready to whip up something tasty when his wife grabbed his arm. Wait, look at Song-guk. The little guy was glued to the TV again, eyes darting like a spy. If we change the channel or turn it off, he just cries, she whispered. Dad squinted. Again? He's watching news? Again? So, he decided to intervene. With the goofiest grin, he crouched down and stepped right between Song-guk and the screen. Peekaboo! Come on, play with Daddy! Wrong move. Mini Song-guk's eyes narrowed like a hawk. He grabbed his dad's finger, his tiny hand surprisingly firm. His face, pure fury. If he could talk, he would have screamed, "Get out of the way and turn that thing back on." Dad blinked. Wait, is he mad? Mom sighed. I don't know what's gotten into him lately, but Song-guk knew. He had to keep watching the news. Every detail mattered. Grandpa Jushin's trial, Tae-guk's rise, the timelines. He needed it all. He needed info, every bit of it. How did he get here? How do things change? How does he take it back? That's all he cared about. But fate, or rather Mom, had other plans. She scooped him up. Time to eat, she cooed. No, he screamed inside. The TV flicked off. His lifeline gone. He squirmed in her arms, tears brimming. He didn't want food. He didn't want comfort. He wanted power. His power, his mind screamed. Do you know how hard I fought to earn my place as Samjeon's successor? You think I'll just hand it over to John Tae-guk? To that idiot? His tears spilled. But this time, they weren't a baby's cry. They were a man's silent scream. His mother gently patted his back, humming softly as his little body leaned into her. The rage, the tears, all melted away under her warmth. and like some switch flipped, Songguk's angry little pout softened. His forehead rested in her lap. His eyes fluttered shut. What's happening to me, he thought faintly. I'm getting dumber, I swear. It was a scrambled mess of baby instincts, short attention spans, and wild emotions. He hated it. But still, her hand kept patting, and he was out, just like that. Deep sleep, drool and all. His parents finally relaxed. Dad slumped. Man, finally. Mom exhaled. I'm just worried. He hasn't even said Mom or Dad yet. He's almost a year old. Just stares at the news like it's some drama. Dad frowned. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I mean, what do I even know about parenting? They didn't have money. No college degrees. No fancy house. But love? They had more than enough. He'll be okay, his mom whispered, stroking his hair. He's our boy. A few days later, Songguk sat slumped near the TV, his tiny shoulders drooping in despair. Depression hit hard. He'd spent days fake napping just to binge the news, hoping for one useful clue, anything that could explain his reincarnation, how to fix it, how to stop Tae-guk from taking what was his. But nothing. Just boring politics, scandals he already knew, and weather updates. The world moved forward like his death never happened. Meanwhile, he was stuck in a tiny body with squishy cheeks and a diet of mashed bananas. I'm tired of this, he thought, eyes blank. His mom, cheerful as ever, knelt down beside him. Wanna watch TV? He didn't even flinch. He'd already given up, so she picked him up instead. Let's go for a walk. The flowers are blooming today. The weather was kind, the breeze soft. His mom smiled brightly as she stepped outside, holding him close with a small shopping bag in the other hand. His pout remained, but even he couldn't deny the sky looked nice today. As they walked toward the market, a woman stepped into view. Unit 107? It was the landlord, younger lady, wearing her office outfit. She smiled politely. Morning, his mom smiled back and bowed. Good morning, the woman waved, walking toward her office. And just like that, they continued. The quiet road led past a local construction site, the air filled with the clang of metal and buzzing saws. His mom hummed, bouncing him lightly. Look at those flowers, Songguk. Pretty, right? He just stared ahead. But something about this path, this moment, felt like it was leading somewhere. Their landlord is also beside them. Songguk looked up at his mom, thinking, why does she talk so damn much? Always yapping about flowers and sunshine like it meant something. But then, his attention snapped. The sound of clanging metal grabbed him, loud and sharp. He turned his head fast. The construction site right beside them, some steel rods were shaking loose. His heart jumped. The metal started falling, right toward where he and his mom stood. He froze, his mom froze, and then crash! A mother's instinct immediately took over. In that critical moment, she focused solely on protecting her child, disregarding her own safety. The next instant, a cloud of dust engulfed everything around them. As it slowly settled, the fallen metal rods became visible on the ground. The landlord, who had been standing nearby, quickly rushed toward her. Deep concern etched his face. Amid the chaos, the mother was found lying beneath the metal rods. Blood was trickling from her head, yet her eyes were fixed solely on Songguk. Despite her pain, her only concern was whether he was safe. With trembling hands and a voice filled with fear, Songguk approached her. Mom, you can't die. Mom, he called out, his voice shaking. Panic and fear overwhelmed him. It was clearly an emergency. She was rushed to the hospital without delay. At the hospital, a construction worker explained the situation to the medical staff, detailing how the construction materials had collapsed onto the woman. The doctors quickly completed the necessary formalities and sprang into action. Moments later, So Young cried out in pain. Slowly opening her eyes, she saw her husband standing before her. She attempted to sit up, but he gently urged her to lie down, reminding her that she had just survived an accident. Ignoring his words, her first question was about Songguk. Where is Songguk? Is he okay? She asked urgently, her eyes searching. Her husband's expression softened. He's right there, he said, gesturing toward the blanket where Songguk had been lying beside her. He gently picked up their son, whose tears had left visible trails on the blanket. The mother reached out her hand, pulling her child into her lap, grateful beyond words that he was unharmed. Songguk, his nose running and cheeks flushed, looked at her, and then, without warning, tears began pouring from his eyes. He was deeply shaken. He broke down, sobbing loudly. Why didn't you think about your own life, Mom? What would we have done if you had really died? His voice cracked with emotion, revealing how scared he had been. The father stood silently, overwhelmed with relief that both mother and child were safe. But the moment of peace was interrupted when the mother glanced around and realized she was in a private hospital room. Puzzled, she turned to her husband. Why did you book such an expensive room? Her husband, a slight blush creeping up his face, smiled softly. I don't think your condition is something to take lightly, he said. You need complete rest. She looked at him, confused. What do you mean by complete rest? Why? At that moment, her eyes landed on a banner at the end of the bed. It read, "Strict bed rest for pregnant woman." A wave of realization washed over her. No way am I really pregnant, she whispered. The atmosphere shifted into one of joy and amazement. Her husband nodded, beaming. Yes, you just need to recover well, for both your sake and the baby's. It was a moment of overwhelming happiness. The family, having just faced the edge of tragedy, now found themselves celebrating the beginning of a new life. But just as their heartfelt moment was unfolding, a sudden knock on the door interrupted the peace. A nurse stepped in politely, saying, "Excuse me, visiting hours are almost over for today." Slightly embarrassed, the father nodded. "Ah, yes, I'll be leaving right away," he replied. Turning to So Young, he gently encouraged her to use this time to rest and regain her strength. "I'll be back tomorrow," he added with a smile. They exchanged warm goodbyes. On his way home, the father walked alongside little Song-guk. Despite the emotional warmth of the day, reality quietly returned. The father's shoes were worn out, barely holding together. A hint of worry crept into his expression. He wondered how they would get home, as even the bus fare seemed too much at the moment. Song-guk, puzzled by the hesitation, looked up. "Do we not even have money to get home by bus? Seriously? We can't even afford that." The frustration in his thoughts was clear. What a miserable household this is. But then memories rushed back. He thought of his father, working endlessly to support the family, and his mother, who had risked her life without hesitation to protect him. The weight of love overpowered any feelings of resentment. Looking up at his father with newfound understanding, he said confidently, "Dad." The father paused, stunned. It was the first time Song-guk had spoken that word. Overwhelmed, he smiled, deeply moved by this simple yet powerful moment. 1 week later, a warm atmosphere filled their small home. Food was arranged on the table, and a cheerful note was posted nearby. So Young's safe discharge, welcome party. Song-guk, dressed in traditional attire, radiated confidence. Both parents beamed with happiness, delighted at how adorable their child looked. The father eagerly snapped photos, praising, "He's more handsome than celebrity babies." Song-guk, clearly flustered by all the attention, closed his eyes and sighed in quiet frustration. Is this really the time for a celebration? He thought. Though he couldn't say it out loud, his thoughts were conflicted. You struggled so much just to pay the hospital bills, even saved on bus fare. When every penny counts, shouldn't we be skipping parties like this? The old Song-guk would have criticized them for such choices, but now he couldn't bring himself to ruin this moment. His eyes instead sparkled with quiet joy. He saw something far more valuable than money, the deep, unconditional love his parents gave him. Love that made his mother throw herself in harm's way to protect him without hesitation. And so, he joined in the celebration, his eyes steady with confidence. During the past week, while his mother recovered in the hospital, Song-guk had made a decision. He realized he needed to step up. Realistically, his parents would never escape poverty on their own. They lacked financial knowledge, no investment skills, no savings, barely managing to make ends meet, and soon a major economic crisis was coming. He knew all this. After all, he came from the future, right? His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the ringing of the doorbell. His mother stood up to answer it. A voice echoed from outside. It was Kim Young, their landlord. As the door opened, the landlord's wife stepped inside, her expression kind. She had come to check on So Young's health after the accident. As the conversation flowed, she suddenly looked towards Song-guk and, with a curious smile, asked, "Have you ever considered letting Song-guk become a child actor?" The scene shifts to the following day. The audition building gleamed under the morning sun, its sleek exterior reflecting the buzz of energy within. Inside, open auditions were being held to cast child actors for an upcoming project. Outside the building, So Young and Song-guk stood together. Song-guk's face glowed with excitement. Finally, he thought, something is happening in my life, something good. But just as hope began to rise, hesitation crept in from beside him. So Young wasn't nearly as confident. Anxiety clouded her expression as she looked up at the towering building. She was seriously considering turning back. Seeing this, Song-guk grew visibly upset. How could she think of backing out now? He wondered. This is a golden opportunity. And just as frustration began to surface, So Young, swallowing her fear, finally took a step forward toward the building's entrance. Her mind drifted to a few days earlier, to the conversation with their landlord. Back then, When the landlord first brought up the idea of Song-guk becoming a child actor, both parents were confused. Sensing their hesitation, the landlord elaborated. She explained that the company she worked for had taken on a television commercial project for a well-known conglomerate. They were holding auditions to cast a critical child actor role. That's when her eyes fell on Song-guk. She observed him carefully, his sharp features, expressive eyes, and natural presence. He wasn't just good-looking, he had potential. That was why she had suggested he audition. Returning to the present, they now stood waiting outside the elevator. So Young glanced at Song-guk, but he seemed lost in thought, though not with worry. Quite the opposite. Song-guk was laughing quietly, filled with self-assurance. Those destined to succeed will succeed, he mused. And this is my moment. He envisioned all the possibilities ahead. Recognition, success, wealth. This audition was his gateway to earning real money. From a young age in his previous life, he had been immersed in the entertainment world. Cameras and makeup were second nature to him. He had grown up in the spotlight, no less refined than the country's top actors. People had even called him a chaebol who could pass as an actor. A sly smile crept onto his face. This kind of audition, he thought. I'll breeze through it, claim the prize money, the guarantees, all of it. So Young watched him, puzzled by his strange amusement. She couldn't quite read what was going through his mind. What she didn't realize was that he was already thinking 10 steps ahead, about the money, the success, and how to reinvest it all. Still, her nerves remained unsettled. As she hesitated at the elevator doors, another contestant stepped in ahead of them. With the gap closing, So Young finally gathered her courage and followed inside. The audition journey had officially begun. Both children seemed pleased to see one another. Well, sort of. So Young looked at the other child with a smile and commented softly, "He's really cute." The caretaker beside the child responded proudly, "This is our young Master Jay." But before the moment could settle, a woman stepped into, elegant, stern, and visibly irritated. "Don't talk to me, lady," she snapped. She was the mother of the other child and, judging by her tone, not in the mood for pleasantries. Her eyes narrowed at So Young. "So you're here for the audition too? What, trying to scope out the competition?" Caught off guard, So Young quickly responded, "No, that's not it at all." But the woman smirked arrogantly. "Well, struggle all you want. Our Jay will win anyway." Listening to this, Song-guk's expression hardened. What did she just say? There was something in his glare, sharp and unshakable, that made the woman pause. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. Why does that kid's gaze feel so intense, she wondered. She was the textbook definition of arrogance, draped in luxury brands from head to toe, with a personal nanny trailing behind her like a servant. The very image of an entitled madam from a wealthy household. Song-guk, clearly annoyed, clenched his jaw. Her attitude irritated him to the core. He made up his mind then and there. I'll completely destroy them in this audition. The scene shifted to the studio, where the directors were already filming the auditions for child actors. While So Young was visibly tense, Song-guk remained composed. He knew this was just a basic screen test, nothing complex. The team simply wanted to see how the kids looked on camera and if they could act, even just a little. But under the harsh lights and unfamiliar setting, most young children found it hard to stay calm. Suddenly, the director called out, "Child number 10, Lee Jae." The same arrogant woman from earlier confidently approached the director. Recognizing her, the director greeted her warmly. "Oh my, isn't this the wife of Daopeng Paper?" Hearing that, Song-guk's eyes widened slightly. "So, she's from Daopeng Paper." He recalled the company, a respectable mid-sized business. Not top tier, though. In fact, it was the subcontractor of a subcontractor of a subcontractor for Samjeon. Basically, he thought, way beneath the Samjeon group. In the next scene, little Jay was placed under the spotlight for his audition. His mother, standing nearby, urged him sharply, "Smile!" But the child wasn't coping well with the pressure. His face twisted with discomfort, and moments later, he broke into loud sobs. Trying to maintain professionalism, the director turned to the mother and said, "I'm sorry, but with him crying like this, it's going to be difficult to continue." The woman waved it off. "What are you talking about? He'll stop soon." But the director, now firm, replied, "There are other children waiting. We need to keep things moving." Still, she wasn't ready to give up. "Just wait a little," she insisted. But the director didn't waver. "Next child, please. Number 12, Jaewon, Song-guk." And with that, it was time for our protagonist to take the stage. It was the main director who decisively called for the auditions to continue. The woman, clearly offended by being dismissed so casually, glared in frustration at him. Her pride was wounded. Meanwhile, hearing the name Song-guk announced over the speaker, So Young suddenly froze, visibly baffled. Her expression shifted as she rushed forward toward the stage. Without a word, she moved past everyone and helped place Song-guk onto the audition platform. The sub-director stepped in, looking at Song-guk with a warm smile. "Let's begin your audition." So-young, standing to the side, was filled with anxious curiosity. How is Song-guk going to handle this? She wondered. But before she could think further, the arrogant woman, still not ready to let go of her ego, stormed toward the front, roughly pushing So-young aside to get a better look. She was desperate to witness how this child, the one who dared to challenge her own, would perform. Song-guk caught her gaze and smiled with a quiet confidence. "Yes," he thought. "Watch carefully. I'll show you exactly why I succeed, and why your son doesn't." Without hesitation, he shifted his expression into a bright, adorable smile. It was pure, charming, and effortless. The entire room seemed to pause. That one smile made hearts skip a beat. The main director suddenly shouted, "Camera! Someone get me my camera!" Quickly, the camera was handed over, and the director positioned himself, aiming the lens at Song-guk. "Look this way," he instructed, and Song-guk turned with just the right angle, meeting the lens with sparkling eyes. The director continued with his directions, "Give me a side-angle pose," and Song-guk responded instantly, executing it perfectly. Next, he was told to use the props on stage. Song-guk handled each one naturally, shifting poses and expressions with the ease of a seasoned actor. The room was silent in awe. The director's amazement was written all over his face. This child, he's a genius. Meanwhile, the arrogant woman watched in disbelief, her confidence unraveling with each second. As Song-guk lit up the stage, she could do nothing but burn with envy. The director was visibly impressed by Song-guk's performance. His approval was unmistakable, and the room was left in awe at the brilliance this child displayed so effortlessly. After a brief pause, the director made his decision. He would proceed with casting Song-guk immediately. So-young stood stunned, trying to process the moment. Meanwhile, Song-guk remained composed, as though he had anticipated this outcome all along. The director, now stepping forward with enthusiasm, approached So-young. Introducing himself as Director Kwak Junha, he offered a warm handshake and said with a delighted smile, "If possible, let's proceed with the contract." The word contract caused So-young to pause in uncertainty. Her expression gave away her inexperience with anything related to the entertainment world. She was clearly out of her element. Noticing her confusion, Director Kwak gently pulled back his excitement and apologized, realizing he might have rushed things. "I understand this is sudden," he said kindly, "but your child, he has overflowing talent. Not only is he a natural in front of the camera, but the way he responded to every one of my directions, it was as if he completely understood what I meant." And the truth was, Song-guk did understand everything. Every cue, every emotion. He had lived this life once before. The director's eyes gleamed. "I'm truly excited to work with him." But just as the moment was filled with quiet joy, it was abruptly shattered. The arrogant woman from before, unable to accept defeat, lashed out. In a fit of rage, she grabbed one of the light stands and threw it to the ground. The crash echoed across the studio, silencing the room. "I demand a final audition," she shouted. Her voice was shrill with entitlement. "You must give my son another chance. This isn't fair." She wasn't yelling just at the director. Her fury extended to So-young as well. She simply couldn't accept anyone other than her own child, Jay, being the selected candidate. Despite the chaos, the final audition list was soon displayed. Only 2 names were on it, Song-guk and Jay. The director turned toward them and said calmly, "Please wait outside for a moment." So-young, though still rattled by the lady's aggression, glanced toward her son. Seeing his name on the final list brought a quiet joy to her heart. There were so many charming, bright children here today, but to her, of course, her son looked the best. Still, nerves began creeping in. She turned away, her heart pounding. Why do I suddenly feel so anxious? Her change in expression didn't go unnoticed. Jay's nanny, having observed her closely, walked over. "Is something wrong?" she asked with polite concern. So-young hesitated for a beat before replying softly, "I need to use the restroom." The nanny gently offered her help, stepping forward with a warm smile. She took Song-guk into her arms, allowing So-young a moment to step away and collect herself. As she cradled the child, her gaze softened. There was something remarkable about him, something truly special. She looked at Song-guk kindly, whispering to herself, "This child, he's really something else." But her words didn't go unnoticed. The arrogant lady, who had been lurking nearby, overheard the compliment, and her fury ignited. Her eyes widened with indignation as she stormed toward the nanny. "What did you just say?" she snapped. "Are you seriously comparing that child to my Jay?" The nanny froze, startled by the sudden outburst. "Do you want to get fired?" the lady yelled, her voice echoing through the hallway. "If you're so fond of that kid, why don't you just raise him yourself?" Song-guk, still resting in the nanny's arms, felt a wave of frustration rise within him. He wanted nothing more than to put that arrogant woman in her place. A slap to bring her back to reality. How satisfying that would be. But of course, he was a baby, powerless to act. Just then, the studio door creaked open, and the sub-director stepped out with a troubled expression. His eyes scanned the hallway, clearly searching for someone. "Is Song-guk's guardian here?" he asked. So-young hadn't returned yet. Seizing the moment, the sub-director turned toward the arrogant lady and began speaking. As their conversation continued, Song-guk remained silent but completely attentive, absorbing every word. The arrogant woman took the opportunity to vent. "I signed up for this audition to create a few memories for my Jay," she scoffed. "Not to have him compete with some random kid. But Song-guk has also been selected for the final round," the assistant director replied, hesitantly. "Don't be ridiculous," she said, waving her hand dismissively. Jay was already chosen as the winner. Song-guk's eyes narrowed. Of course, this was one of those auditions, the type where the results were pre-arranged. A carefully staged performance to elevate one child, hers, while using others as props to validate the process. He had seen it all before in his past life. The sub-director glanced around nervously. "If the main director finds out, we'll be in trouble." But the woman didn't flinch. "So what?" she retorted. Assistant director explained her. "He's award-winning director from overseas. He's popular, sure, but the higher-ups won't touch him. Just keep this quiet." Still visibly uneasy, the sub-director shifted the conversation. "So, are you prepared for the final audition?" "Of course," she answered confidently. "I hired a private tutor. Jay's been practicing for days." "That's all we need," the assistant director replied, relaxing a little. "There's no way Song-guk can outperform Jay, not after all that training." He turned his attention to Jay, calling him over to rehearse. "Let's go over your lines. Repeat after me." But just a few feet away, still nestled in the nanny's arms, Song-guk wore a calm, knowing smile. He'd already heard every word of the script, and now he was ready. The stage lights flickered on, signaling the start of the final audition. Both Jay and Song-guk stood on stage. The challenge was simple yet crucial. The baby who could pronounce the lines naturally and perform the scene convincingly would be declared the winner. So-young stood at the edge of the stage, her heart pounding with anxiety for Song-guk, but her son radiated calm confidence. The director gave the cue. Action. The assistant director followed, saying, "Babies, please look this way." Song-guk, however, already understood. How the babies responded to shooting directions was part of the evaluation. He knew exactly what to do. Positioning himself carefully, he began walking directly toward the camera and the director, ensuring he was in the perfect frame. Meanwhile, Jay headed in the opposite direction, toward his mother. The assistant director urged him to focus on the camera, but the lead director interjected. "Shall we leave that baby for now and begin the test with Song-guk?" With a nod, the assistant director moved to assist. "Provide him the lines," the lead director instructed. The assistant director, confident that Song-guk, unlike the prepped and practiced Jay, would surely falter, leaned in and delivered the audition lines. To his utter disbelief, Song-guk repeated them flawlessly, his delivery adorned with a bright and innocent smile. Every word landed with charm and clarity. The assistant director froze in confusion, while the lead director's eyes gleamed. His instincts had been right. This child was exceptional. But the arrogant lady wasn't about to admit defeat. She quickly lifted Jay into her arms and called out, "Director, please watch my child as well." Though reluctant, the director agreed. He asked gently, "Can you try saying Daddy?" Jay blinked, confused, then suddenly burst into loud, uncontrollable sobs. The arrogant lady stood frozen, stunned. "I trained him for this," she exclaimed. The director raised an eyebrow. "Trained? What do you mean by that?" Before the conversation could escalate, the assistant director swiftly intervened. "Let's wrap up the audition here." Back in the spotlight, Song-guk remained calm and collected. There was a quiet triumph in his gaze. He knew he had given his best. Then the announcement rang out. The next generation's child actor, final winner of the audition, Lee Jae. "What?" So-young's voice trembled. Song-guk too was stunned. They had clearly won. And yet, they lost. Even victory, it seemed, could be stolen. So-young and Song-guk stood before the assistant director, struggling to comprehend what had just transpired. Despite Song-guk's impressive performance, the rejection felt unjust, and So-young was visibly furious. Her frustration was directed at the assistant director, questioning how he could overlook such a standout act. Before she could process her thoughts further, A voice rang out from behind her. Just because that kid acted cute doesn't mean he can be a child actor. Turning around, So-young came face to face with an arrogant woman whose expression carried nothing but disdain. "How dare you aim for victory with nothing but a little charm? Do you not know your place?" she sneered. The woman's words dripped with malice. "For a low-class kid, second place is good enough." So-young clenched her fists, her anger swelling. But in that moment, there was nothing she could do. She was powerless against the cruelty being displayed so openly in front of Songguk. Yet when her eyes met Songguk's, she found him calm and collected. A faint smirk danced on his lips, as if he had anticipated all of this. He had already done the math. Right on cue, the sound of footsteps approached them. It was the lead director. Earlier, when the lead director discovered that the winner had been pre-decided in Jay's favor, he had swiftly shifted his strategy. He had witnessed this sort of corruption too many times in his past life. Battles rigged from the start, where merit meant little against money. Fighting that kind of battle was meaningless. Instead, he set his sights higher, building connections. Now, standing before them, the lead director asked to speak with So-young. She was puzzled. What was left to discuss after rejection? Then came the unexpected. The director bowed his head slightly and apologized. He explained that the audition had been manipulated by higher authorities, and unfortunately, there was little he could do to change the outcome. He also offered his sincere apologies to Songguk, who remained quiet, anticipating what would come next. The lead director then invited both Songguk and So-young to participate in a commercial shoot scheduled for the following week. This wasn't just another gig to Songguk. His goal had never been a one-time appearance. He intended to use this opportunity to captivate the director, forge meaningful industry relationships, and pave his path to becoming a consistent child actor, a star. His ambitions were clearly written on his face. For Songguk, this was about securing a stable income and lifting his family out of poverty. This commercial was only the beginning. So-young, however, remained confused. Why would they call them back if they had already been rejected? She wondered. The lead director clarified. It was common practice to have 1 or 2 backup models in case the selected baby fell ill unexpectedly. And truthfully, the production team was growing anxious about the chosen winner. Jay's skills, while praised, left them uneasy. The lead director, recognizing this, gently took So-young's hand and earnestly requested her cooperation for the upcoming shoot. So-young hesitated. She wasn't sure how Songguk would feel about stepping in under such uncertain terms, but her doubts quickly vanished when she saw the spark in his eyes. Songguk was thrilled. Of course, he would love this opportunity. The lead director, relieved, smiled. It was clear Songguk understood the situation perfectly, and that understanding would make everything ahead much easier. With that, he handed So-young his business card, providing his contact information for potential future collaborations involving Songguk. The following week arrived. A commercial shoot was set up near Seoul, and So-young and Songguk were present on set. For So-young, this was her first time at a filming location, and she took in the bustling atmosphere with wide eyes. As they arrived, the assistant director approached. Just as he began to speak, Songguk shot him a piercing glare. This was the same corrupt assistant director who had orchestrated his rejection. The assistant director bowed his head in apology and asked them to follow him to the waiting room. As they walked, something caught Songguk's eye, and he stopped in his tracks. His eyes widened with recognition. There it was, the 3rd-generation washing machine from Samjeon Group, the Samjeon Turbo Washer. It had made waves in the industry with its groundbreaking drum system and had become a massive commercial success. Samjeon's stock had soared following its release, much to his grandfather's delight. The machine had even earned the title of Best Home Appliance of the Year. Now, Songguk realized this commercial was centered around that very machine. Before they could move any further, a voice snapped from behind. It was the arrogant woman once again. She stormed toward them, furious at the sight of So-young and Songguk on set. If they failed, why are they even here? She demanded. But this time, So-young didn't stay silent. With calm determination, she confronted the woman. She explained that they had been invited as backup models by the director himself and asked her to refrain from using harsh language in front of the child. Songguk felt proud watching his mother stand up for them. The arrogant woman looked puzzled. Backup model? She repeated. The assistant director stepped in to explain. In case something happened to Jay, they had to be prepared. Still, the arrogant woman remained unfazed. She scoffed, confidently insisting that Jay was in perfect condition and there would be no need for a substitute. However, beside her, Jay's appearance told a different story. He didn't look nearly as confident or healthy as she claimed. Turning once more towards So-young, the woman ordered her to leave the set. But before anything more could be said, another voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" All heads turned. It was the actress Im Seon-mi, graceful and striking as ever. Everyone stood in stunned silence. After all, she was a renowned actress. Looking at the group, she asked casually, "Are these the babies I'll be filming with today?" The assistant director quickly stepped forward and explained the situation. He introduced Jae, the official audition winner, and Songguk, the backup model. With genuine affection for the children, actress Im Seon-mi leaned forward to greet Jae. However, Jae showed no interest in responding. His lack of enthusiasm left her puzzled and slightly offended. She turned her head away in irritation, clearly taken aback by the cold reception. Her attention then shifted towards Songguk. Unlike Jae, he understood the significance of the moment. Greeting the lead actress was not just a formality, it was essential. As Seon-mi leaned toward him, Songguk gently reached out and took her hand. The gesture was warm and natural, as though they had already formed a bond. Seon-mi smiled, immediately sensing that Songguk was a sweet and affectionate child. Turning to the assistant director, she said casually, "I think I'll film with this one instead. He's much cuter." Her words left the arrogant woman stunned. "What?" she gasped, grabbing Seon-mi's hand in protest. "What kind of nonsense is that?" Seon-mi calmly pulled her hand away. The two women faced off. "Don't just barge in and spout nonsense, okay?" the arrogant woman snapped. Seon-mi raised an eyebrow and replied coolly, "Excuse me, who are you? And what do you think you're doing?" As their argument intensified, both Songguk and So-young watched the exchange with barely hidden amusement. But then, a new presence entered the scene. A hand gently rested on the arrogant woman's shoulder. She turned around, startled. "Who are you?" she demanded. Before she could say anything more, Seon-mi's expression lit up. "Vice Chairman, what brings you here?" she asked, smiling warmly. The man responded with composed authority. "I couldn't miss the shoot for our new product's commercial." But the moment Songguk saw the man's face, his expression changed completely. His eyes widened in disbelief. "No way," he thought, frozen in place. Standing before them was Jeon Jae-young, the vice chairman of Samjeon Group, and in a shocking twist of fate, Songguk recognized him as his father from his previous life. Vice Chairman Jeon Jae-young of Samjeon, what kind of man was he? Though not quite as legendary as his father, Chairman Jeon Jushin, Jae-young had built a solid reputation of his own. During critical periods in Samjeon's history, he led company restructuring and worked tirelessly to refine the organization's internal systems. He wasn't afraid to invest in niche markets and future-forward sectors, gaining recognition as a visionary, a future leader of the tertiary industry. Within business circles, he was often called Samjeon's Jeon Jae-young, a nod to his progressive leadership and capability. Yes, as a vice chairman, he was competent, successful even, but as a man, a husband, and most painfully a father, he was the worst. Standing at a distance, Songguk looked at him with deep frustration while Jeon Jae-young conversed casually with Seon-mi. That face, that voice, everything about him stirred unwanted memories. In his previous life, Songguk had watched this man live recklessly, surrounded by a revolving door of mistresses. When Songguk turned 10, there was one woman who stood out, one whom his father introduced to him personally. Even back then, Songguk had refused to engage with her. He had no interest in forming a bond with the mistress of a father who treated his family like pawns. And now, as he stared ahead, realization hit him like a wave. The woman standing before him, actress Im Seon-mi, was the same mistress from his past life. She turned to Jae-young and pointed towards Songguk. "I'm filming with kids this time," she said sweetly, "and I like this one." Hearing this, Jae-young stepped forward and leaned down to greet Songguk. Both So-young and Songguk stood frozen, stunned by this unexpected gesture. But before the moment could stretch any longer, a voice called out from nearby. "Excuse me, Vice Chairman, it's time to head inside." With a nod, Jae-young turned away. He looked toward the arrogant lady and said calmly, "Please take good care of the shoot." The woman, visibly intimidated, bowed deeply. "Of course, I'll do my best," she replied quickly. Songguk watched all of this with a knowing gaze. He already understood the situation far too well. There was no way someone like the wife of Deokpung Paper's chairman could openly oppose Samjeon's vice chairman. Not Jeon Jae-young. His father always gave the impression of a playboy, but in critical moments, he displayed the commanding charisma expected of a vice chairman of a major conglomerate. As Songguk stood silently in thought, his father unexpectedly placed a hand on his head and said with a calm voice, "Take care." With that brief exchange, he turned and walked away. Songguk watched his back fade into the distance. "Father," he whispered inwardly. I'm going to live a different life than I did in my past. This time he had found something worth calling a family. He would protect these people. And one day, he vowed, he would build a company greater than Samjeon itself. There would come a day when they'd face each other again, on equal footing. Just then, his thoughts were cut short by the sharp voice of the assistant director. He reminded everyone that the director would be arriving soon and asked the child models to get ready. Songguk and Jae took their places, though waiting patiently would be a stretch, especially for Songguk. He knew that the past was behind him, and what mattered now was the present. His glowing eyes and mischievous smirk said it all. He was focused, and he was ready. He glanced at Jae with quiet confidence. The concept of the advertisement was simple, yet emotionally compelling. Set in a beautiful forest villa, a mother is seen doing laundry with her baby. She washes the father's white shirt, stained with sweat after a long day's work. The Samjeon washing machine spins into motion. The moment it stops, the shirt emerges dazzlingly white, as if brand new. The happy baby rubs his cheek against it and calls out to his father. The ad ends with a clean, refreshing shot of the shining washer. In Songguk's previous life, this commercial had been a massive success. It was celebrated for its direction and even won an advertising award. The child actor who starred in it became an overnight sensation. Songguk knew that this was his chance. He had to be in this ad. Jae, the original lead, had started crying uncontrollably during the shoot. The actress, visibly frustrated, snapped at the director. This baby is not suitable for this ad. Every time I get near him, he starts hitting me. Even Soyoung, watching from the sidelines, looked confused. Jae had seemed so calm and sweet earlier. What had changed? What no one realized was that this sudden change in behavior was all part of Songguk's plan. Knowing how deeply Jae feared his own mother's abuse, Songguk had offered him a simple trick. Whenever Sunmi gets near you, resist, cry, act out. If you do, they'll send you home early. Perhaps it was some unspoken understanding between children, but Jae had taken the advice to heart, and now he wouldn't stop crying. Eventually, the lead director had enough. He stood up from his seat. This isn't working, he declared. Let's go with the second model, Songguk. The arrogant lady's expression twisted with fury. What are you saying? But the director didn't back down. We've been stuck for over an hour. The baby's not cooperating. He's even slapping the lead actress. We need to wrap today, no matter what. Still refusing to accept the decision, the arrogant woman hissed, Do you know who we are? Don't be ridiculous. She pulled out her phone, a chunky mobile model from the 90s, and began dialing. Everyone on set froze, knowing exactly what she was threatening. If I make this call, everyone here will be replaced, she warned. But before she could finish, a sharp slap echoed across the set. It was Sonmi. The entire crew stood in stunned silence. The arrogant lady reeled from the impact, struggling to process what had just happened. Sonmi's voice was icy. I can't stand people who ruin a set for no reason, she said. You may be the wife of a Deokpung paper executive, but don't let that inflate your ego. She turned calmly toward the lead director. Let's resume the shoot, she said, her tone professional and composed. Then, raising her finger, she pointed directly at Songguk. I want to film with him. With Sonmi's firm call, the lead director didn't hesitate. He clapped his hands and shouted, Everyone, stand by! Just like that, the shoot was back on track. The arrogant lady was completely helpless now, watching her carefully laid plans fall apart. She gritted her teeth and hissed, Why is he shooting instead of our Jae? Her frustration boiled over as she turned on Soyoung. What could that lower-class kid possibly do? Soyoung flinched, clearly shaken by the woman's rage, but she didn't respond. And honestly, there wasn't any need to, because the camera light switched on, and that tiny red glow, it was the same light Songguk remembered from his past life, the one that followed him all the way to death. But this time, things were different. Acting confidently in front of a camera, that was one of Songguk's sharpest weapons. He knew exactly what to do. The shoot began. The first scene rolled in. He started with a sweet line. How is it? Our baby's clean and fluffy, right? Then, in the next shot, Songguk grabbed the freshly washed shirt. Hugging it close, his little face bloomed with joy, showing off the cutest expression like he was seriously in love with that shirt. Everyone on set was stunned, completely flabbergasted. The lead director jumped into action. Keep the main camera on him. The rest of you, adjust focus around Songguk. Scene after scene, Songguk gave it everything he had, hugging the shirt like it was his best friend, staying locked in with the camera like he'd been doing this all his life. The director leaned in, watching closely. His eyes, they're locked straight onto the lens. This baby is incredible. Even the actress Seonmi was thrown off a bit. She stared at the baby, genuinely baffled. How is this baby acting like this? Still, she jumped right back into character, smiling on cue. Oh my, our baby also loves clean laundry. Trustworthy, round and round. Come, meet it now. The two of them, Sunmi and Songguk, nailed every shot, like they were born for this. The camera framed them perfectly. The energy, on point. The expressions, flawless. The lead director quietly muttered under his breath, perfect. And just like that, the audition, the shoot, it was done. As the sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over the set, the arrogant lady's attitude only grew worse. Her pride was clearly bruised after Jae got replaced by Songguk, and she wasn't shy about showing it. Huffing and puffing, she threw one final jab, but the lead director had heard enough. What about Jae, huh? A kid who can't even act, he shot back, irritation clear in his voice. So Young and Songguk were already exhausted, mentally drained by her non-stop arrogance. But just then, a calm voice stepped in like a breeze cutting through the tension. It was Sunmi. She approached casually but firmly and said, "Even if you scream like that, it won't change anything now." Turning to So Young and Songguk, she added gently, "No need to get worked up over this. What can anyone do if her kid just couldn't act?" Then her gaze shifted to Songguk and her tone softened even more. "Honestly, he's the best," she said, smiling with sincere admiration. "Because of him, we wrapped the whole shoot in just 2 takes. That's rare." The arrogant lady was fuming now, boiling with rage she couldn't contain. Spitting accusations left and right, she suddenly turned on the assistant director, exposing his corruption in front of everyone. The moment the lead director caught wind of that, his mood darkened. His eyes narrowed sharply, and he snapped, "We'll deal with this properly, after." The assistant director paled, visibly shaken. But before anyone could respond further, the arrogant lady stormed off, still muttering curses and insults, clearly done with the whole scene. Once she disappeared, the lead director turned towards So Young, a bit embarrassed, and bowed slightly. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that." But So Young shook her head with a small smile. "It's okay, really." His attention then shifted back to Songguk, and his face lit up with appreciation. "That kid, seriously, without him today would have been a disaster." He gave them a warm nod. "You two go home now. You've done more than enough." Songguk felt a small swell of pride. The shoot was finally over, and it went better than he could have imagined. They were heading home, mission complete. But somewhere else, Sunmi was deep in her own thoughts, a subtle smile playing on her lips. She glanced over at Songguk and So Young, then made a quick offer. "Hey," she said to So Young, "why don't you ride back in my van? I'll drop you off." And so they did. Inside the van, Songguk, tired from all the action, fell asleep fast, his tiny face calm and peaceful. So Young couldn't stop smiling watching him sleep. There was something truly heartwarming in that moment. His cuteness, his talent, and how far he'd come in just one day. As the conversation rolled on inside the van, Sunmi turned towards Songguk with a soft smile and said, "Thank you, Songguk." So Young blinked in surprise. "Huh? Why are you thanking him?" Sunmi chuckled and replied, "Because today he was the perfect lead actor. Thanks to him, I could wrap up work early." Then she leaned back, her expression thoughtful. That child, his gaze followed the camera light so naturally. He understood how the camera worked and synced his performance perfectly with mine. It might have been chance, but he even matched the angle of my face, didn't he? She paused, then added with more admiration, "He got the rhythm of the shoot. Every take, he delivered like a pro, dominating the screen like he was born to be in front of it. In my eyes, Songguk is already a complete actor." So Young turned to look at her son, eyes wide in disbelief. Is Songguk really that amazing? The thought echoed in her mind. As Sunmi smiled, she continued, "And in that sense, Songguk's mother, I'd like to make a suggestion." She slowly extended her hand towards So Young, clearly offering something big. So Young stared at the hand, amazed and caught off guard. And right then, Songguk smirked ever so slightly. This is exactly what he wanted. It was a bright, sunny day at Songguk's house. The mood was almost festive. Sitting right in front of the family, the landlady placed a thick envelope down on the table. 4,000,000 won, she said with a proud smile. Everyone's eyes widened. The original payment was supposed to be 3 million, but apparently the director had pushed for more. It was way more than they'd expected, and it showed on their faces. Songguk burst into a big, gleeful laugh. "Man, this is amazing! I knew it! Child acting was the right move." He leaned into the envelope, sniffing dramatically. "Even the money smells good." While everyone was still dazed by the sight of the cash, Songguk's little brain was already spinning with plans. He didn't just want to spend it, he wanted to reinvest it. This was just step one. Meanwhile, Sayanguk's dad was practically trembling. "I've never held this much money in my life," he mumbled, eyes glued to the envelope like it might vanish if he blinked. But So-young, she wasn't smiling. She looked serious, worried even. Quietly, she reached into her bag and pulled out a business card, holding it up to the landlady. The landlady leaned in to take a look, and her jaw dropped. It was the business card of Sinsung Entertainment. So-young spoke up. She must have really taken a liking to Songguk. She said she wants to bring him into the agency as an exclusive child actor. That stunned the room. Songguk as an exclusive actor? So-young sighed. It's not that I'm against it. I mean, it'd be amazing if he does well. But it's all happening so fast. It just caught me off guard. The landlady sat there, thinking for a second. Then she looked up and said, "Don't worry, I'll look into it." That surprised So-young. Huh? I've heard of Sinsung Entertainment. The landlady nodded. I'll check who the CEO is, how they treat their actors, all of that. Hearing her say that, both So-young and Songguk lit up. They hadn't expected her to go that far for them. She stood up, brushing her hands off. Anyway, congratulations again, Songguk. Your first gig as a commercial model. The ad's gonna air in 2 weeks, by the way. So exciting. As she headed toward the door, Songguk called out behind her. Landlady. She turned around, curious. Yeah? That's when So-young jumped in. Why? Why are you helping us so much? The landlady blinked, a little taken aback. Before she could answer, So-young continued. You always recognize Songguk's talent. You've helped us so much already. Why? The landlady looked down for a second, then finally spoke. I've been living on my own since I was young, she said quietly. It wasn't easy. I scrimped and saved on food, wore the same clothes for years, all just to buy this building. And then your family moved in. She smiled faintly. Seeing a young couple working hard, raising a kid together, it really hit me. It was admirable. I just wanted to support you all. Not to meddle, just cheer you on. So-young stared at her, moved beyond words. But then, with a sudden spark of excitement, she blurted out, Unni, can I call you Uni? The landlady blinked again, then grinned wide. And just like that, the room was filled with warmth. Not just from the sunshine, but from something stronger. Family. As they sat together chatting warmly, So-young looked at the landlady with a soft smile. You know, I really want to treat you like family, she said. I'll even cook some side dishes for you too. Hearing that, the landlady paused for a second, then smiled. It was the kind of smile that came from feeling truly touched. This really is a warm-hearted household, she thought. Then she looked at So-young and nodded. All right, she said. I'd love that. So-young lit up like a light bulb. Really? You mean it? Yeah, the landlady said, laughing. I'm happy to be part of your family. From behind the doorframe, little Songguk had been quietly listening to everything. He smiled to himself, softly, gently. It was one of those smiles that held more meaning than words. But his dad, glancing over at him, looked confused. What's with the mysterious grin? He wondered silently. And just like that, the bond between the family and the landlady grew even stronger. 2 weeks later, the scene shifts to a modest hotel where Songguk's father worked. He was just about to close the restaurant for the day. He walked up to his boss with a slight bow. We've shut everything down now, sir, he said politely. This was the owner of the restaurant, Mr. Park Won, a loud, friendly guy who loved to mess around. Songguk was smiling politely, but deep down, he wasn't feeling it at all. Songguk's dad continued, Thank you again for letting us close early today. The reason? The restaurant had a big TV, and tonight was a big moment. Songguk's first commercial was going to air. As Mr. Park tried to ruffle Songguk's hair, the kid gave the fakest smile he could manage. Please stop touching me, he thought in his head, but he held back. While all this was happening, So-young and Songguk's dad were checking the time and getting ready to watch. Then suddenly, the door opened. It was the landlady. I couldn't miss it, she grinned. Had to come see our star's debut. So-young's face lit up. It's like we're watching a movie premiere, she giggled. Songguk's dad waved everyone over. All right, come on, everyone, take your seats. The commercial's about to start. The TV screen lit up. The room fell silent. And there he was. Seonmi holding Songguk appeared on screen. Gasps and smiles broke out across the room. The colours, the music, it all felt magical. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Little Songguk, clutching a freshly washed white shirt in his tiny hands, looked up with his big sparkling eyes and said, Daddy. A collective awe swept through the room. So-young clutched her heart. Landlady's eyes glistened. Even Mr. Park, the annoying boss, stood up and started clapping like a proud uncle. As the commercial ended and the room buzzed with praise, the landlady turned to Songguk with a big smile. You were amazing, kiddo, she said, her eyes full of genuine admiration. You really stole the show. Hearing that, Songguk felt a warm rush of pride, but he didn't let it get to his head. Instead, his thoughts wandered a bit. If things keep going like this, he thought, this commercial might even win an award. Maybe. Commercial of the year? That'd be something. But just as he was getting lost in his daydream, his father pulled him into a big, warm hug. I still can't believe this is my son, he said, eyes gleaming. He's so polite, so composed. Are you sure he's our kid, So Young? So Young laughed, swatting him lightly on the arm. Of course he is. Suddenly, the ringing of the restaurant phone cut through the cozy moment. Mr. Park, the boss, walked over and picked it up. Hello? Yes, this is Park 1. A second later, his eyebrows shot up. What? The director? It's the director who filmed the commercial. He says he needs to talk to you. Something urgent. On the other end of the line, standing beside the director, was a tall, handsome man with a calm and gentle smile on his face. His presence alone made it clear this wasn't just some casual visit. Something big was coming. The next day, the scene opens on a tall, sleek building shining under the morning sun. Songguk's family walks in, a little nervous but mostly excited. They're greeted by the lead director, who had personally invited them. As they all exchange greetings, little Songguk looks up and gives a polite nod. Hello, director. The lead director's eyes widen in surprise. Oh, you're speaking more now? Soyoung and her husband chuckle proudly. He's changing every day, Soyoung says with a warm smile. It's like he grows up a little more every time we blink. The director nods thoughtfully. Then I guess we can give him some longer lines this time. They all settle into a meeting room, and the director finally brings up the reason for the meeting. We're launching a new variety show, he explains. It's called Just Baby. It's a parenting reality show where 5 famous idols live together with Songguk. Before he could even finish the sentence, the door swings open and a cheerful voice echoes through the room. Hello! They all turn, and in steps a tall, strikingly handsome young man. Soyoung's eyes widen instantly. It's Taeyoung, the leader of the idol group Just. He gives them a warm smile. Looking forward to working with you. Tall, stylish, and effortlessly charming, Taeyoung strolls in like a prince stepping onto a stage. Soyoung's jaw is practically on the floor. Her husband narrows his eyes, clearly not loving the way her gaze is fixed. Taeyoung chuckles and asks politely, You've heard of us? Oh, of course. Soyoung says quickly, her voice a bit too high. I've seen you guys on TV. Your group is amazing. Taeyoung smiles. We're working hard to become the nation's top idol group. You'll definitely make it, she says with a sparkle in her eyes. Your singing and dancing are perfect. Her husband leans back in his chair, folding his arms. Jealousy practically steaming off him. Another man? In front of me? Really? Trying to break the tension, the director continues. Once filming begins, you'll get to meet the other 4 members of Just too. Soyoung nods, trying to look composed, but she's clearly thrilled. Still, she raises a concern. Wouldn't this be a bit too much for Songguk? I mean, all these cameras, celebrities, it could be overwhelming. Songguk looks up at her, confused. Overwhelming? Me? The lead director chuckles. Actually, Songguk is the heart of this show. He continues passionately. He understands emotions like he feels them. His expressions? Spot on. And the way he follows the camera? It's like he was born for this. Then he turns to Songguk directly, crouching to his level. What do you say, buddy? You ready to be a star? Without hesitation, Songguk nods with a bright smile. I'm ready. And just like that, a brand new chapter begins. As Songguk listened, he remembered Just Baby from his past life. It was a national hit, the first parenting reality show pairing idols with a baby. It skyrocketed in popularity, and now he was about to be at the center of it. This is perfect, he thought. My chance to rise as a child star. But his father's smile faded. He looked at the director and said, I have a concern. The room quieted. I know this is a big opportunity, and I see how excited Songguk is, he continued. But if he keeps appearing on TV, will he still grow up like a normal kid? I just wanted to raise a happy child, not a celebrity. He'd made it this far. There was no turning back now. One of the group member looked at Songguk's father and asked gently, Why don't you trust your son? If he has the ability to shine, why not give him the chance to do so? Songguk's father looked down at his son. His eyes sparkled, full of pride and wonder. He really is special, he thought. Maybe it's his destiny to shine. Finally, he looked at the director and nodded. Please take good care of him. Everyone smiled at his decision. And with that, Korea's first ever parenting reality show, Just Baby, officially began. The contract was signed, the concept shoot wrapped, and soon the first filming day arrived. The idol group Just, Taehyung, Lucas, Jaehyun, Baeomgyu and Michael would be co-starring with Songguk. Soyoung was thrilled her son would be working with such stars, though her husband clearly wasn't. One of the idols even grabbed Soyoung's hand, knowing she was a fan. That made Songguk's dad even more jealous. With a smile, the director announced, "Starting today, we'll be filming at Just's dorm." The station had sky-high hopes for this show, and honestly, the energy on set was electric. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, ready to kick things off. But while the cameras and staff were prepping, little Songguk's eyes scanned the idol group, and then it hit him. Wait a minute, these guys. He blinked. Yep, these were the same dudes from his previous life. One was Sam John's CF model. Another became a hotshot actor after leaving his idol days behind. They even used to greet him at company events. The realization hit like deja vu with glitter. But before Songguk could soak in that wave of nostalgia, Michael, the Korean-American member of the group, decided to make his entrance. With a big grin, he knelt down and said, "This baby ain't even that cute," then casually reached out to touch Songguk. "Bad move, buddy." Songguk, in all his pint-sized glory, slapped Michael's hand away like a true diva. The whole room gasped. Turns out Michael was a smoker and hadn't washed his hands. Gross, sure. But that wasn't why Songguk shut him down. Nope. In his past life, this same guy had stirred up nothing but drama. Toxic, two-faced, and always causing messes. So this time, Songguk was ready. Not today, Michael. He decided then and there. He wasn't just going to be a cute face for this show. He was going to take control of the narrative, craft everyone's arcs with the flair of a seasoned director, and make sure he stayed center stage. While everyone else on set was losing their minds over how adorable Songguk was, Michael stood there fuming. His ego bruised, his pride dented, and with that shady little smirk, Michael plotted quietly, ready to bring some evil energy to the dorm. Let the chaos begin.
The lead director clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. "All right, everyone, listen up," he called out, gathering the cast and crew. He laid out the filming plan. Starting today, they would be doing a 3-day pre-filming session, just at dawn. Those early shoots would be edited into 3 pilot episodes, and based on viewer feedback, they'd decide on the regular broadcasting schedule. He continued, explaining that daytime would be reserved for general filming. At night, the crew would wrap up, switching to observation cameras to capture real-time footage. Songguk's parents would be staying at a nearby hotel during all this. At that, Songguk's mother looked visibly concerned. Noticing her worry, the director offered a warm smile. "Don't worry. We'll take the utmost care of Seongguk," he reassured her. "Of course," the members of Boredom just chimed in enthusiastically. "Leave it to us, mother." And with that mutual resolve, everyone was fired up to give it their all. The assistant director stepped forward, giving further instructions. The first scene starts with narration. "Don't worry, we'll record the official narration later with a pro voice actor." And action. In a modest semi-basement, 5 young men lived together, collectively known as Just. United by the dream of becoming top idols, their ordinary daily lives took a sudden detour. Because, out of nowhere, a baby arrived. All attention turned to the tiny new star, Seongguk. With twinkling eyes and cheeks rounder than mochi, Songguk looked absolutely adorable. The members were spellbound by his cuteness. Silence hung in the air. No one knew what to say. Are there no scripted lines?" Seongguk's mother asked, eyebrows raised. "It's a reality show," the director replied, amused. "He doesn't seem to know how to react," the assistant director noted, watching Songguk's blank stare. "Hold on a sec," the lead director mumbled, trying to read the situation. The group started whispering amongst themselves. "The camera's rolling. Someone say something. What are we supposed to say to a baby?" Even Songguk looked baffled. But then he smiled. He'd figured it out. These rookie idols were hopeless with babies, which meant he had to take the lead here. Looking around at the unfamiliar space, Songguk made a decision. His expression twisted dramatically, and he let out a full-volume cry. Panic erupted. "What do we do now? Let's calm him down," Taeyong shouted, springing into action. He scooped Songguk up in his arms, completely the wrong way. Jaehyun, ever the observer, winced. "Dude, that hold is totally off," he commented. Without hesitation, Jaehyun stepped in and picked Songguk up properly. Miraculously, the baby stopped crying and seemed completely at ease in his arms. The others blinked in disbelief. "How did you do that?" someone asked. Jaehyun grinned smugly. "Babies love handsome faces. It's science." That sparked immediate bickering. As Songguk suspected, each of these guys had their own unique flavor. Taeyong, the reliable leader, mature and responsible, practically a dad. The gentle flower boy, vain yet nurturing like a mother. Lucas, the laid-back athlete, your classic big brother type. Quiet but kind, the watchful protector. Honestly, they were the perfect mix for a pretend family. Songguk, being the true mastermind, started assigning roles ahead, and then there was Michael, clueless, wild card energy. Songuk really wanted to cast him as the villain, but no, for the greater good of group harmony, and he'd make him the rival. With great dramatic flair, Songuk pointed his tiny finger straight at Michael. Jaehyun blinked. What's he trying to say? Maybe he needs a diaper change? Taeyong guessed, hesitant. Diaper? Me? I've never even touched one, Taeyong confessed, stepping back. Michael stepped forward confidently. Don't worry, I got this. I raised 3 younger siblings back in LA. This is nothing. He approached like a seasoned pro. But Songuk's expression darkened. Something mischievous flickered in his eyes. Michael noticed. Wait, why is he looking at me like that? Before he could react, splosh! Songuk unleashed a golden fountain of baby wrath right into Michael's face. Michael staggered back, stunned. Meanwhile, Songuk looked utterly pleased with himself. That should feel refreshing, he thought smugly. And with that glorious moment, Michael took a cautious step backward from baby Songuk, probably rethinking every life choice that led to this day. Taeyong stepped forward, concerned. Hey, Michael, you okay? He asked, reaching out. Michael turned to him, and his face was a storm cloud ready to erupt. That's when it happened. This little brat! Michael exploded, glaring at Songuk with the fury of a man wronged by destiny. He actually looked like he might square up with a literal baby. Whoa! Whoa! Taeyong quickly grabbed him, holding him back before things escalated into a full-on baby versus adult showdown. The entire room burst into laughter. The director nearly dropped his clipboard, wheezing. The assistant director doubled over. This is gold, someone chuckled from the crew. Absolute comedy gold. Even the boom mic operator was shaking from silent laughter. Songuk, watching the chaos unfold, felt pleased, deeply pleased. Another flawless victory, he thought with pride. This shoot? Certified success. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light through the windows, the lead director called out, "All right, everyone, take a 2-hour break. We'll resume with the evening shoot later." The group exhaled in unison, looking wrecked. Reality shows were no joke, no script, no retakes, just raw reactions and baby-powered chaos. Soyeon walked over to Songuk with a bright smile. "You did amazing today," she said warmly. She handed him a banana, thinking he must be starving. In his past life, Songuk wouldn't have spared a banana a second glance. But in this life, somehow, it tasted like heaven. Sweet, satisfying, divine even. He took a bite, savoring the flavor like he was in a dessert commercial. Behind them, Taeyong quietly approached Songuk's father. He looked genuinely moved. "I just wanted to say, your son is fascinating," he said earnestly. He elaborated, his tone thoughtful. "Every time I'm near him, I find myself drawn in, like completely absorbed in what's happening. It doesn't feel like acting. We're just being ourselves, and yet the scenes come out perfectly. It's like magic." Songuk's father chuckled. It's probably just a coincidence." But Taeyong shook his head. "No, I don't think so. There's something about him. He's shining brighter than any of us expected." Nearby, Jaehyun was basking in the aftermath of the day's success, especially proud of being the flower boy who could also ace childcare. He looked like he was ready to print that on a resume. Taeyong added with a laugh, "It's almost like Songuk already understands our roles and just plays along perfectly." Little did they know, that was exactly what Songuk was doing. But while most were enjoying the break, one person was not in a good mood. Michael. Freshly out of the shower, his hair still damp, he fumed silently in a corner. He hadn't forgotten the warm gift Songuk had left him earlier. He clenched his jaw. That little devil's gonna pay. Just then, the assistant director walked up to him, clearly annoyed. "Michael," he said bluntly, "you've got to stop pulling the overseas excuse card every time something doesn't go your way." He shoved a small baby meal pack into Michael's hands. "This is Songuk's evening food. Warm it up and feed him." Michael snatched the packet with exaggerated politeness. "Oh, I'll prepare it. Nicely." His lips curled into an ominous grin. In his pocket, something sinister peeked out. A packet of chili sauce. Michael glanced down at it, eyes gleaming. "You want a spicy show? I'll give you one," he thought. This reality show was about to get real spicy. Michael had made up his mind. If this show was going to be spicy, then literally so. Still seething from the earlier golden shower of justice delivered by Seon-guk, he grinned wickedly and pulled out the tiny packet of hot sauce he'd smuggled in. "This time," he muttered, tearing it open, "it's my turn." With an evil smirk, he mixed the fiery red sauce right into Seon-guk's baby food, stirring with the flair of a villain prepping his masterstroke. Meanwhile, the assistant director finished setting up the hidden cameras all over the room, carefully positioning them to catch every unscripted moment. Once everything was in place, both the director and assistant director quietly left the set. The group of young idols looked around awkwardly, fatigue setting in fast. The cameras were watching. The pressure was on, and they had zero clue what to do next. Lucas yawned. "Can we eat first? I'm starving." "Who's cooking?" someone replied. Cue awkward silence. Not a soul in the room could fry an egg, let alone whip up dinner. Then Taeyong remembered, wait, before anything, we've got to feed Son-guk. Just as he turned, Michael casually stepped in, cradling the bowl of tainted baby food with the innocent smile of a man with ulterior motives. Taeyong blinked. Michael? Helping? Something about that felt wrong. This was the same guy who got mad at a literal infant earlier. Now he was volunteering? Son-guk didn't buy it for a second. He squinted up at Michael, his eyes narrowing with seasoned suspicion. Something wasn't right. Babies usually weren't this skeptical, but Son-guk had lived another life, and his baby instincts were top tier. Michael leaned in, cooing, "Come on, this was made by mommy. You gotta eat it, lil guy." But instead, Son-guk snatched the spoon from Michael's hand and raised it toward him. Michael froze. Wait, what? He's so kind and thoughtful, Taeyong smiled, watching the scene unfold. He wants you to try it first. Michael swallowed hard. Why aren't you accepting his love, Michael? Taeyong asked, eyebrow raised. You're hurting his feelings. Yeah, Michael stammered, backing away. I'm allergic to feelings? Taeyong sighed dramatically. Cold-hearted. Fine, I'll accept Son-guk's love. He leaned in and opened his mouth like a proud parent. One spoonful in, and Taeyong froze. His face twitched. His eyes widened. His soul left the building. Jaehyun noticed immediately. Hey, what's wrong? Taeyong gasped. Hot! Hot! Jaehyun grabbed the bowl, sniffed it, then tasted a drop. His expression turned ice cold. Hot sauce, he muttered. In the baby food. Silence. All eyes locked on Michael. Michael laughed nervously, hands raised in surrender. Okay, so I put in some hot sauce. Just a little joke, all right? It'll boost the ratings. But Jaehyun wasn't amused. His voice was low, sharp. There's a line, Michael. Even for entertainment. He stepped forward, gripping Michael's collar. What if Son-guk had eaten it? What if something happened to him? Are you out of your mind? Then, from the side, Taeyong gently approached Son-guk. He crouched down and bowed slightly. I'm sorry, Son-guk. You didn't deserve what Michael did. The baby nodded solemnly, accepting the apology like a tiny emperor receiving tribute. Both Jaehyun and Taeyun were livid. They pounced on Michael, shouting, shoving, and scolding without restraint. The set turned chaotic as the fight escalated. Meanwhile, Son-guk sat calmly, watching the scuffle like a seasoned director previewing a trailer. These guys, he thought, chuckling. They've got real potential. With a loud, mischievous grin, he declared silently to himself, From now on, I'll guide these fools properly. The next morning, Seonguk's home. A wave of disbelief swept through the household. The first episode of Just Baby hit 20% in viewership. The landlord beamed as she shared the news. Isn't that amazing? So young, Seonguk's mom looked stunned. 20%? Isn't that huge? It's not just huge, Seonguk's father replied, eyes wide. It's historic. MVC's top shows barely scratch 15%, the landlady nodded proudly. The director called earlier. It's official. Just Baby is now part of MVC's regular programming. She turned to Son-guk, her expression warm and admiring. Congratulations, little star. You've done it. Son-guk, ever composed, offered a calm yet confident smile. Of course, he thought. When I'm the one in charge, this level of success is only natural. But he didn't let it stop there. Clenching his tiny fist with conviction, he declared internally, This isn't enough. Not yet. I want more. Fame, fortune, and ultimate celebrity status. He suddenly burst into laughter, lost in his ambition. The landlady stared at him, puzzled. Is he okay? A more serious note. Seonguk's mother, So-young, hesitated before turning to the landlady. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. A few days ago, someone from Sinsung Entertainment came to our house. The moment she heard the name, the landlady's smile vanished. They congratulated me on the variety show's success, So-young continued nervously, and brought a fruit basket. One of their representatives said their CEO, Sinsung Jung, wants to meet us. Her voice trembled. They even asked us to visit the agency when we're free. The landlady went quiet for a moment before sighing. I was actually looking into Sinsung Entertainment after our last conversation, she confessed. It's true. They're big, very influential, but there are a lot of rumors surrounding them. Rumors? Songguk's father asked, uneasy. Yes, she said. About shady contracts, about CEO Jung himself, even connections to gangsters. The word gangsters sent a chill through the room. So-young and her husband looked horrified. The landlady continued, cautiously. Still, I think we should go, just to hear them out. If anything feels off, we walk away, no hesitation. At that moment, Seonguk, no, the old soul behind his baby eyes, froze. Sinsung Jung, that name. A long-buried memory surged forth. His eyes widened. No way. It can't be him. The alarm bells in his head screamed louder than ever. Wait! Don't meet him! Seonguk suddenly cried out. Well, cried as a baby, which to everyone sounded more like an urgent babble. But inside, his thoughts were crystal clear. Sinsung Jung. That man isn't someone you sign a contract with. That man is someone you never, ever get involved with. Inside Shinsung Entertainment headquarters, the room was sleek, dimly lit, and intimidating. CEO Shinsung Jung sat confidently at the head of the table, his sharp gaze piercing through the formal atmosphere. He gestured to the plush seats in front of him. Please, have a seat. So Young and the landlady exchanged nervous glances as they sat down. Their posture was stiff, uncertain. A strange pressure filled the room, making it difficult to breathe. Thank you for inviting us, CEO Young, the landlady began cautiously. But may I ask why you wanted to see us? With a thin smile, CEO Jung replied, Of course, I simply wanted to discuss a bright future for our Seongguk. Seongguk's eyes narrowed. Our Seongguk? He thought, teeth clenched. What does this snake think he's claiming already? He tried to stay composed, but his inner voice boiled. You really think you know me? CEO Jung snapped his fingers, and an assistant stepped forward with a neatly prepared folder. We'd like to offer Seongguk an exclusive contract, naturally with Korea's #1 agency, Shinsung Entertainment. He placed the folder on the table and slid it toward them. A 10-year commitment. 10 years? The landlady repeated in disbelief, flipping through the document. Yes, the CEO said smoothly. Top stars like Jang Dong-woon and Im Sun-mi also signed this exact type of agreement. We value Seongguk's potential. We're even offering very favorable terms. As he continued his rehearsed pitch, Seongguk's interest peaked. He gestured for the contract, curious about the trap he already suspected. And there it was. The landlady's expression changed instantly. Her eyes widened in shock. She looked up sharply. A 70-30 profit split? Of course. CEO Jung replied calmly. We receive 70%. We are investing in his future, after all. Investing? Seongguk scoffed internally. No, you're draining. These terms are slavery, locking someone into a decade of exploitation. He clenched his jaw, exactly like before. In his past life, Shin Sung-jung had ties to the Samjeon Group, specifically to his father, Vice Chairman John Jae-yong. That connection, forged through actress Im Sun-mi, led to dirty deals, misused influence, and a flood of shady ad contracts. Shin Sung-jung showed blind loyalty to Seongguk's father, and eventually, poetic justice ended up behind bars for threatening and abusing his own celebrities. Back in the present, CEO Jung smiled thinly. I've been in this industry for over a decade. I've never seen a child actor like Seongguk. He's got that it factor. Then, his voice dropped, almost muttering. Child actors fade as they grow. You lock them in while they're hot, milk the ads, ride the fame, discard them when they cool off. No backing, no power, perfect targets. The words made Seongguk's blood boil. He hasn't changed one bit. But just before he could say anything, the landlady closed the contract with a loud snap. We'll have to decline. Silence filled the room. CEO Jung raised an eyebrow. I beg your pardon? We appreciate the offer. She continued, calm but firm, but we're not interested in this type of deal. So Young looked at her in surprise. But beside her, Seongguk smiled with pride. Good, he thought. She saw through it. I was right to trust her. Inside the meeting room, Shinsung Entertainment. The atmosphere turned dense as CEO Shin Sung-jung leaned forward, his expression unreadable. Why are you refusing the contract? He asked, voice calm but cold. The landlady didn't flinch. Because Seongguk's value will only rise in the future. A 10-year deal on these terms would be a mistake. The room fell silent. Then CEO Jung let out a low, mocking chuckle. You're quite confident. I understand. You find the child adorable. But let's be honest, you don't know much about this industry, do you? He waved a dismissive hand. The child actor market is small. They don't make much compared to adults. And if his face changes as he grows, his value will disappear. Seongguk's fists clenched tightly. His ears burned. But before the words could land deeper, So-young gently covered his ears. She didn't want him hearing such cruel, calculated words. But Seongguk had already heard enough. Look who's talking, he thought angrily. You'll only get uglier with age, like a toad. But I, Seongguk, will grow into greatness. I'm only getting started. His chest tightened with emotion, and despite his strength, tears welled up. He started crying. The landlady stood abruptly. You lack vision, CEO Jung. We're leaving. CEO Jung's eyes narrowed. Miss, you're not even his mother. Why are you interfering? Outsiders should stay out of family matters, right? That was the last straw. The CEO looked between the two women, visibly confused. The landlady turned to So-young. Let's go. I worked in advertising long enough to know this contract is a trap. But CEO Jung wasn't going to let them go easily. His smile twisted into something darker. You'll regret this, he muttered. Both women turned back, puzzled. Do you think you can disrespect me, Shin Sung-jung, and still work in this industry? He snapped, his voice rising with fury. The mask had finally come off. The landlady remained calm. So the thug finally shows his true face, she thought. Without another word, they grabbed Song-guk and left the room, ignoring the CEO's shouting as they walked out. Outside the Shinsung Entertainment building, emotions ran high. The landlady's fists were clenched, making threats to a pregnant woman. He's not even human. She turned to So-young. Are you okay? So-young gave a small, shaky smile. I think Umi had it harder than me. No, the landlady replied firmly. Guys like him are everywhere in this business, but we're not going to bow to them. We don't need a company like that. She pointed across the street. Let's take the bus. But as they started walking, So-young called out, Miss Kim. The landlady turned. Would you really become Song-guk's manager? She froze, surprised. So-young looked between her and Seon-guk. The boy's face lit up with a rare smile. This isn't a bad idea, he thought. In business, you learn that talented people are everywhere, but trustworthy ones are rare. And Miss Kim, she's both. Still uncertain, the landlady replied, I'm not an expert in the entertainment industry. But before she could finish, Song-guk tugged at her sleeve and pointed a tiny finger up at her. Become my colleague, he said boldly. The tension broke into laughter. Even So-young chuckled through her tears. Umi, my husband and I, we really don't know this world. Please help us protect Song-guk's future. The landlady exhaled, her expression softening. A new sense of purpose bloomed in her heart. All right, she said, I'll do my best as Song-guk's manager. They all smiled brightly. Let's earn an incredible amount, she declared with a grin. You will pay me, right? Of course, Song-guk replied seriously. We'll give you everything. He was glowing, enlightened, and ready for the future. Back inside Shinsung Entertainment, CEO Shin Sung-jung was fuming, pacing across his office. A subordinate entered. Sir, we found out who she is. Her name is Kim Mi-young. She works at an advertising firm. Also, she's the landlady at the house where the John Song-guk family lives. A dark grin spread across the CEO's face. Kim Mi-young, is it? He turned slowly. If they won't come under me, I'll make sure they understand what it really means to survive in this industry. Let them feel the pressure. He snapped his fingers. Call the reporters. Back on set, the filming resume. The cameras rolled again, and the set was filled with laughter as Song-guk and Michael battled over a bunch of bananas. Taehyung tried to intervene. Guys, cut it out. Michael, give it a rest. But Michael shrugged. I like bananas too, okay? Despite the fuss, everyone else just handed the bananas to Song-guk, enjoying the chaotic scene. Song-guk only ate faster, refusing to let Michael win. The director and assistant director laughed behind the monitor, amused. From the outside, it looked like harmless fun. But inside, the tension between the boys was real. Both were glaring, silently daring the other to go further. Stop it! Taeyang suddenly yelled, his voice echoing across the entire studio. Everyone fell silent. The director chuckled and clapped his hands. All right, let's break for lunch. Outside the set, lunch break. Just then, Song-guk's parents arrived. His mother, So-young, now visibly pregnant, walked carefully over to the waiting area. The director noticed and approached her kindly. It must be tough, coming to the set in your condition. So-young smiled. Not at all. Even though it's been months, watching the filming is still fun and exciting. The director nodded, glancing at her belly. Still, if it becomes too much, please don't hesitate to tell me. Thank you, director, she said warmly. When's the due date? He asked, genuinely concerned. Late December or early January, she replied. As they continued chatting, the director brought up something else. By the way, about Michael. The audience really enjoys the way he bickers with Seon-guk, like a real-life Tom and Jerry. He paused. Though honestly, I worry sometimes. Michael can be too much. Has it bothered you at all? So-young shook her head. No, director. I trust you. I actually find their quarrels pretty funny. Relieved, the director smiled. All right, I'll make sure to keep it balanced. Unbeknownst to them, the landlady, now officially Song-guk's manager, was listening nearby. Without a word, she quietly stepped away, thoughtful. Backstage, a brewing storm. The crew scattered for lunch, chatting and stretching. Song-guk, however, was slumped on a bench, sleepy from too many bananas. He rubbed his eyes, drowsy, until he felt a shadow loom over him. It was Michael. His grin was sharp, eyes narrowed. Hey, did you really hit me earlier, you ill-mannered brat? Seon-guk's drowsiness vanished instantly, replaced with anger. You've been crossing the line lately, he snapped. I've been watching you. Want to get taught a lesson? Michael flinched. This kid's crazy, he thought. Temper like dynamite. Trying to assert dominance, Michael grabbed Seon-guk's cheeks and twisted them hard. Seon-guk gasped, his cheeks burned red, eyes welling up, his voice trembled, and then he wailed. Loud, really loud. Michael panicked. No, don't cry. It was just a joke. But the sobbing only got worse, and standing right behind them was the landlady. She stepped forward calmly but firmly. Michael, she said, did you just pinch Song-guk's cheek? Michael froze. Wait, it's not what it looks like. He's just overreacting. But she wasn't buying it. I've been with this boy long enough to know he doesn't cry without reason. Michael looked down, ashamed. Songuk peeked up through watery eyes, seeing his manager standing beside him like a shield. He sniffled and smiled slightly. She's really on my side, he thought. Tensions behind the scenes. The landlady had noticed it for a while now, Michael constantly laying his hands on Songuk during shoots, poking, pinching, pulling. It had gone from playful to downright disturbing. Finally, she'd had enough. Michael, she said firmly, standing between him and Songuk. I've asked you before. Don't touch him like that. Michael scoffed. Why are you acting like his mother? He's just some insignificant kid. The landlady didn't flinch. Insignificant? She stared him down. Then how come you filmed several commercials thanks to that insignificant child? That shut him up. Michael was speechless. Without another word, she gently picked up Songuk, who still had tears in his eyes, and said in a cold tone, "This is your final warning. Stop physically abusing a baby." She walked away, leaving Michael fuming alone, his face twisted with anger. This isn't what I came to Korea for, he thought bitterly. I wanted to be an artist, not some glorified babysitter. And ever since that stupid hot sauce incident, the other members had been giving him dirty looks. This whole program is trash. Is there a way to make it flop? Let it fail. I'll succeed without it. Just then, his phone rang. Annoyed, he snatched it up. What? But when he heard the voice on the other end, his eyes widened in shock. It was a call from Shinsung Entertainment Studio. A few days later, the production team had gathered again at the studio. Thanks, everyone, for coming to this production meeting, the director said with a bright smile. Taeyong, despite his packed schedule, was there. And so was Songguk's family, accompanied by the ever-watchful landlady. Before diving into business, the director lifted several envelopes onto the table. Before we start, performance bonuses, he announced cheerfully. Gasps filled the room. He beamed. Our viewership just crossed 30% last week. That's a massive achievement. The higher-ups are thrilled, and they really adore Songguk. Everyone applauded in surprise. But Taeyong and Songguk were a little distracted, both curiously peeking into their envelopes with excited eyes. Of course, the director continued, there's not much time left until the final episode, so let's finish strong. He placed another stack of papers on the table. Now, on to our main topic, the Christmas special episode production. With Christmas around the corner, he began, we've received a request from the higher-ups. They want a 90-minute special, something warm, joyful, and full of that family magic. He glanced across the room, eyes resting fondly on little Songguk, who was wobbling forward, trying to balance on his tiny feet. Songguk, the director called playfully. You've been walking and even running these days, huh? Everyone chuckled as Songguk made a little hop, clumsily but full of energy. The director clapped his hands together. Perfect. We'll have Songguk and all the Just family members in Christmas costumes. Imagine it. Santa hats, a decorated set, a party, singing, dancing. It'll be the perfect feel-good episode to close the season. The director excitedly began laying out the rough plan for filming days, camera sequences, and costume fittings. But then, the door burst open. It was the assistant director, breathless. Director, he called out, a note of urgency in his voice. We have a problem. Everyone turned. He hurried over, tablet in hand. There's an article, just dropped a few minutes ago. The mood in the room shifted in an instant. The assistant director tapped the screen and held it up. A headline flashed across it. Child actor John Songguk exploited for labor. Parents accused of greed. Gasps rippled around the room. The room fell silent except for the sound of the news anchor's voice echoing from the television. Accusations of child exploitation directed at John Songguk's family have shocked the entertainment industry. The article claims the child has been overworked for profit. The screen flashed with Seongguk's smiling face from a recent commercial, now twisted by the headlines. So-young's hands trembled. Her vision blurred as tears welled up. What have we done? What if this ruins his future? The air was thick with anxiety until the director calmly spoke up. Don't panic, he said firmly. It's nothing more than tabloid noise. This kind of attack happens when a show becomes too popular. I've seen this before. The landlady added with quiet resolve, still, I'll find out who's behind this. This isn't a random scandal. It's calculated. And then, surprisingly, it was Seongguk who stood up. The room went still. He raised a small finger, pointing confidently toward the director. Director, he said, his voice clear and unexpectedly calm. His father, startled, reached out to stop him, worried he might be speaking out of turn. But Seongguk continued, gaze steady. Negative public opinion campaigns are power struggles, he declared. Whoever wrote this article has something to gain. If we find out what they're after, we can act faster than them. Director, this is your fight to lead. Everyone froze. Even the landlady blinked. The director's mouth parted in awe. You're right, he said slowly, nodding. Since this began because of our show, it's our responsibility to respond. I'll contact the network PR team immediately. We'll release an official statement and monitor every article that follows. He turned to Songguk's family. For now, stay at home. Don't interact with the press. Avoid the filming site. It's safer. So-young bit her lip. Then, what about Songguk? The room fell quiet again until the landlady stepped forward. I'll stay with him, she said confidently. You focus on resting and keeping the baby safe. The director gave her a grateful nod. Manager Kim, you've been a godsend. Looking back at Songguk, the director smiled faintly. We'll get through this. It's just a storm. And storms always pass. Everyone exhaled, feeling that for the first time, they weren't alone. Whispers in the snow. Outside, snow gently fell over the glowing streets of Christmas Eve. People strolled arm in arm under twinkling lights, hot drinks in hand, laughter rising into the cold night air. Amidst this warmth, a single figure moved cautiously. So young, bundled tightly in a sleek coat, sunglasses shielding her weary eyes from the world. She pushed Songguk's stroller along the side path, her breath visible as puffs of steam. The festive lights didn't reach her heart, only anxiety gripped it. Just a short walk. I needed air, she told herself. This much is fine. But Songguk didn't agree. Inside the stroller, his face turned red with frustration. He kicked lightly, his little hands gripping the sides. He was angry. At his age, being restrained like a helpless baby felt insulting. I can walk. I've walked plenty on set. This is humiliating. His cries seemed to shout. So-young bent over, trying to calm him. Just a little longer, baby. I don't want people to recognize us. But the city didn't sleep. Behind her, voices echoed. Hey, did you watch Just Baby this week? She froze. Another voice chimed in. Of course. The Christmas special was adorable. Taeyong as Santa? Please, I almost fainted. And that baby snowman Songguk? I screamed. I want to eat him up. He's too cute. So-young blinked. Her lips trembled into a small smile. They like him. They really like him. She felt warmth, brief, delicate, like a snowflake melting in her palm. Then it shattered. Yeah, but did you hear about the scandal? That article. Ugh, right. Something about the parents using the kid for money. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? They're always there. It's weird. So-young's breath caught. As the voices behind them trailed off into the cold night, the last words clung in the air like frost. Come on. Does that make any sense? Songguk's turning 3 next year. The streetlight turned green. The passersby disappeared into the night, leaving So-young rooted on the spot. Her grip still tight on the stroller handle, her thoughts spiraling. She couldn't speak. Her face was pale under the streetlight, lips pressed together as tears welled. She didn't notice Songguk looking up at her with wide eyes, but he felt her tension. He stopped fussing. Then came the sound of familiar footsteps. So-young? It was her husband, Songguk's father. His eyes lit up when he saw them. You came? I told you not to come out. It's freezing. But as he reached out to her, the smile faded from his face. So-young's eyes were swollen with tears, and without a word, she collapsed into his arms, burying her face in his chest. So-young? He asked softly, concerned. What happened? She couldn't speak. The words wouldn't come. Only her trembling shoulders answered him. And in that moment, holding her and seeing the look in his son's innocent eyes, confused and quiet, he knew. This couldn't continue. Not like this. Back at the studio, storming through the studio doors, Songguk's father approached the director without hesitation. His face was firm, voice clear but strained. We need to talk. This can't go on. My wife is breaking down. My son is being turned into gossip fodder, and we're being painted as monsters for just supporting our child. The room fell quiet. The lead director looked down, apologetic. We've tried to manage the press, truly, but the public attention around Songguk is unprecedented. The more we try to silence them, the more they dig. I'm not here to hear excuses, Songguk's father snapped. I'm here to protect my family. A heavy silence followed. Then the director raised his eyes, serious now. Then let's take a head-on approach. Songguk's father blinked. What? The director nodded slowly. A live press conference with reporters. Will the live press conference clear the storm? Or will it pour fuel on the fire? Can Songguk's family reclaim their peace, or is the spotlight too bright to ever escape? Stay tuned to find out whether love, truth, and resilience can outshine scandal. Because sometimes the most fragile bonds are also the strongest. Year-end arrived. Time really flew, didn't it? The studio lights were glowing, warm, and full of energy, almost like the place itself knew something special was happening. The cameras were rolling. The Just group was on screen, all smiles, soaking in the moment. They were holding Songguk in their arms, tiny, giggly, and the absolute heart of the show. Everyone was just happy. It was the last day of the year, and honestly, playing around with Songwook, they hadn't even realized how quickly it came. And then it was announced. Just a few days left until the final episode of Just Baby would air. The end was near, and it hit a little harder than expected. On the other side of the room, the assistant director was prepping something on the screen, calm but focused. He gave a heads up. The episode would start broadcasting in just a few seconds. Meanwhile, Songwook's parents stood in front of the mic setup, a little hesitant, unsure. Their nerves were showing. So, the assistant director gently asked, "Shall we begin?" The parents looked at each other, clearly not sure what to say. A mix of nerves and confusion written all over their faces. Seeing that, the assistant director stepped in, trying to ease the tension. He told them that doing the interview was the best way to clear any doubts, to be honest, to just speak their truth. "That's why even celebrities do press conferences," he said with a small smile. Trying to calm them further, he added, "It's just us here. Quiet, simple. You don't have to worry." That reassurance helped. It really did. At that moment, they took a deep breath. The parents started to relax, but So-young, bless her, was still visibly nervous. She turned to look at her husband, maybe hoping for some comfort, but he looked like he was about to cry. He looked at her with teary eyes and softly apologized. So-young was taken aback, confused. "Why are you apologizing?" she asked. He tried to explain, voice shaky, that with her due date so close, he felt like he'd made things harder for her. He carried guilt, felt like he hadn't done enough, maybe even caused her trouble. But she reached out, calmed him down, and told him, "It's all for Songwook. I wanted to do this. And look at you, stepping up, being there like the man of the house. It means everything." Her words hit him right in the heart, and for the first time, he smiled through the tears. He hugged her tightly, full of love, full of gratitude, and that quiet moment didn't go unnoticed. The landlady, who was holding Songwook nearby, saw it too. Smiling gently, she asked if they were ready. And in that moment, it felt like even Songwook was asking the same thing, as if to say, "Let's do this, together." The landlady looked at them, wide-eyed, and said she was honestly shocked when they suddenly announced they'd do an interview. Even little Songwook seemed confused by all the unexpected attention. He had always thought of his parents as quiet and a bit shy, just two people trying their best to get through each day, not the type to stand in the spotlight. And then, out of nowhere, this, a bold, live interview, it caught him off guard, completely. He couldn't help but think, okay, this isn't bad, but why now? Why such a big move all of a sudden? But just as his thoughts were spiraling, his mom gently picked him up. She looked at him with the kind of warmth that made everything else disappear. She was struck by how beautiful her son looked that day, like a little star in their small world. She hugged him close and whispered, "Trust Mom and Dad, okay? We'll take care of it. We'll clear away all those awful rumors." Her voice trembled just a bit, but it was steady with love. Hearing that, his little eyes welled up. That's when it truly hit him. They weren't doing this for themselves. They were doing it just for him. He was amazed. These were the same people who got nervous just seeing a red light blinking on a camera. And here they were, standing tall in front of the world, just to protect him. That quiet, tender moment between mother and son, it touched everyone watching. There was something so pure and gentle in it. Even the staff felt their hearts melt a little. Right then, sensing the scene unfolding, the lead director arrived. The assistant director quickly rushed to open the door. But the moment he opened it, his eyes widened like he'd seen a ghost, or maybe 20. It felt like half the city's press had shown up. Taeyong rushed over to the commotion. The assistant director tried to explain the situation. It was supposed to be a calm, private interview. He mentioned the rumors, how the interview was their way to respond quietly. But now, reporters had swarmed the place like bees to honey. And just like that, a chilling thought hit them. Someone on the inside must have leaked it. There was no other way reporters could have found out this fast. Taeyong turned and shouted, calling for the director. He ran up to him, urgency written all over his face. "Director, please, shut this down. This is too much," he pleaded. "Even I feel pressured and I'm used to this. Imagine what they're going through." But the lead director looked helpless. It had already begun. The wheels were turning, and he couldn't stop it now. He had tried everything, but the crowd outside wasn't backing down. They kept pushing forward. Camera flashes were going off like fireworks, and the reporters were throwing question after question like it was a battlefield. Songwook's parents, already nervous, now looked completely overwhelmed. You could see it in their eyes. And then suddenly, Songwook's father couldn't take it anymore. His voice cracked the noise as he shouted out, "Please, be quiet!" That was powerful. Soyoung was starting to look really uncomfortable. Her husband, clearly panicked, raised his voice and shouted, "My wife's in the late stages of pregnancy. Please stop yelling and turn those flashing cameras off." He tried to calm the chaos. "Just, please speak slowly," he asked. But one of the reporters stood up, clearly not in the mood to cooperate. He asked, almost accusingly, "Why is this family causing all this drama?" Songwook's father froze for a second, unsure how to even begin responding. But then he looked up and spoke. "There have been articles saying some really awful things about our family," he continued, voice trembling but firm. "Yes, it's true. My wife and I, we both grew up in an orphanage. We had no one. When we left, we had nothing except each other. But we didn't give up. We worked day and night to build a family, just like all parents do. We worked hard, honestly, and we're proud of it. And then one day, our neighbor noticed Songwook's talent. That's how we ended up here." He glanced toward the landlady, who gave him a warm, proud smile. He took a breath and continued. "At the end of the day, this is what I really want to say. We are not the kind of parents who use or hurt our child out of greed. We're not doing this for money." But one of the reporters, clearly not satisfied, stood up again with a glare. "And why should we believe you? Huh? How much money have you made then? Show us your bank statements." The whole room shifted. Reporters were shouting now, everyone demanding proof, demanding numbers, demanding evidence. The noise was unbearable. Songwook, watching it all, clenched his little fists. His face went red with anger. He suddenly jumped out of the landlady's arms and landed on the floor with a tiny thud that still somehow felt loud in the room. He marched right up to the reporters and stood in front of them, tiny but fierce. "Stop it!" he shouted. His voice shook with emotion. "Don't bully my mom and dad." He was this close to yelling out, "Cut it out, you reporter bastard!" But, well, he couldn't quite pronounce the word yet, so he let it slide. But even without saying it, the fire in his eyes did all the talking. The reporters were stunned. Some even looked a little scared. Watching his bravery, Taehyung nodded at the director. No words needed, just that one look. The director got the message loud and clear. He stepped forward with Taehyung, both of them standing tall in front of the reporters. "That's it, we're done. This interview is over." Songwook turned back and looked up at his dad. "Daddy, are you okay?" His father scooped him up without a word and pulled him into a tight hug. Songwook still had a bit of a frown on his face. He was mad, because, well, his dad really wasn't the best with words. But even so, he was happy. His dad had tried his best. Then, suddenly, he turned to look at his mom. "Mommy, are you okay?" But Soyoung's face had gone pale. Her expression was tight with pain. Something wasn't right. She was having contractions, and it hit all at once. Both Songwook and his dad completely freaked out. They rushed off toward the hospital in an ambulance, sirens slicing through the streets like a dramatic movie scene. Inside the ambulance, Soyoung lay back on the stretcher, trying her best to stay calm. Meanwhile, her husband and little Songwook were both huddled beside her, faces tight with worry. They were on the verge of tears. "Just hang in there a little longer," her husband said. "We'll be at the hospital any minute now." Trying to calm the mood, she managed a soft smile. "Songwook, Mommy's okay, sweetie. Don't worry." But Songwook could see right through her. He knew she was in real pain, and that made his tiny chest tighten. He was frustrated, because honestly, what did he know about childbirth, or pregnancy, or marriage even, in this life or the last? He was mad at himself for being so powerless in a moment like this. He kept thinking, there has to be something I can do. But no, not this time. All he could do was hold her hand and hope. Thankfully, the ambulance pulled into the hospital fast. And then, in the very next scene, both the director and assistant director just stood there, mouths open, cheeks red. Because right in front of them, little Songwook was proudly holding his baby brother in his tiny arms. It was one of those melt-your-heart kind of moments. Everyone around them couldn't stop smiling. Assistant director walked up to Soyoung, looking all sheepish. "I'm really sorry for all the earlier chaos." But Soyoung, ever the calm one, just gave a gentle smile. "No need to apologize. I'm all right now." The assistant director chuckled softly. "Honestly, I didn't think any baby could be as pretty as Songwook, but man, Minguk is no joke." He reached out, all drawn to Minguk's squishy little cheeks. But before he could even get close, slap! Songwook smacked his hand away like a protective big bro on duty. Frowning hard, he said, "Don't touch my baby brother." With the sternest eyes he could make, he added, "You shouldn't touch newborns with dirty hands." The assistant director blinked, surprised, and kind of impressed. This kid was already acting like a full-on guardian. In his past life, all his siblings had been total chaos, non-stop headaches. But this time, looking at little Minguk, he made a silent vow. I'll raise you right, buddy. The lead director, watching this adorable brotherly bond, suddenly got a light bulb moment. He turned to Song-wook's dad. Would it be okay if we filmed the two of them? Just a quick shot together? He added. After that live interview, viewers went wild. The forum's been exploding. This'll be a sweet update for them. Dad gave a small nod. Sure, he said, touched by all the love around him. The assistant director quickly set up and started filming the tiny duo, Sung-wook looking proud and Min-guk sleeping like a dumpling. But something was still bugging Sung-wook's father. He turned to the lead director and asked, Hey, what happened after we suddenly had to leave back there? The lead director gave a relaxed sigh. All taken care of. It's been resolved now. He grinned a bit and added, Oh, and we even caught the rat. We see earlier, the pager had clattered to the ground. Taeyong was yelling at Michael. Why the heck do you have this pager? He went on. There's been all kinds of weird stuff going on lately, right? Stuff only the crew would know keeps popping up in articles. And even interviews that not even our team knew about somehow got leaked to the press. Michael was starting to look seriously shaken. With a sharp glare, Michael barked back, So what? What'd I do? But Taeyong wasn't backing off. You've been acting shady for a while, disappearing in the middle of shoots like it's nothing, he added. That's why I had Lucas quietly keep an eye on you. And thanks to that, we found everything we needed. Then came the bomb. What's your connection with the CEO of Shinsung Entertainment? Just hearing that name made Michael freeze up, panic written all over his face. Taeyong pressed on. Song-guk's manager suspected Shinsung's CEO from the start. Every one of those smear articles came from reporters tied to Shinsung. And guess what? The number that left a voicemail on your pager? That's Shinsung's too. Everyone was furious. You helped that sleazebag target Song-guk's family? Why? Michael was cornered, scared stiff. They all agreed. Michael and Shinsung's CEO had to face the consequences. And just like that, the scene shifted to police officers cuffing Shinsung Jung. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters shouted over each other. Why'd you order those hit pieces? Shinsung tried to play dumb. I don't know anything about it. That's when Song-guk's dad finally learned the full story behind Shinsung Entertainment and Michael. The lead director stepped in, saying, whatever beef Michael had, Taeyong's going to take full responsibility. He'll personally make him apologize. And as a gesture of apology, the Just team's covering the hospital bills. The whole station's pitching in too. He looked at Song-guk's dad and asked gently, Is there anything else we can do for you? And the father, calm and kind, just shook his head. No need. He smiled and said, Thanks to this comfy private room you arranged, our whole family's together. That's more than enough. He added with a grateful sigh, If those ugly rumors disappear, we won't need anything else. That's all we hope for. People had just been misled by the wrong crowd. He added softly, Now everyone's rooting for your family. He also said that he and Song-guk's manager would handle the rest, starting with a lawsuit against those rude, shameless reporters. The manager mentioned they were planning a 2-month break from filming so Song-guk's mom could recover peacefully after childbirth. A bit surprised, Song-guk's father asked, Isn't 2 months kind of long? But the director reassured him, saying they had already filmed plenty of extra footage. He told him gently, You don't need to stress. Just rest and enjoy this time with your family. Scene cuts. 2 months later, the family looked genuinely happy. Song-guk was proudly caring for little Min-guk like a true big brother. Scene shifts again. A tall building stood surrounded by blooming March flowers, swaying gently in the breeze. Inside a cozy bedroom, the television was playing. News had just come in about Song-guk's return to the show. Mi Sun-mi walked out of the bathroom, fresh from a shower. She wrapped her arms around the person sitting in the chair from behind. Smiling, she asked, Just Baby is starting again, huh? And the man in the chair turned out to be none other than Song-guk's ex-father. They were watching the news about Song-guk's family on the television. Jae-young asked Sun-mi if she knew that kid. Sun-mi thought for a second, then said, Yeah, you met him that day on the Spinwash commercial shoot, remember? Jae-young replied, Ah, right, that's where. She looked at him. Why? What about him? Jae-young said, I happened to see him, and he stuck with me. There was something oddly captivating about the kid that Jae-young couldn't shake off. Suddenly, Sun-mi hopped onto his lap, grinning. That's because that kid's a genius. Jae-young blinked, confused. A genius? Sun-mi nodded firmly. Yep, Song-guk's got the stuff. He's the kind of kid who could be anything. A real natural-born actor. Jae-young raised an eyebrow. That good? Isn't he just another cute child star people will forget once he grows up? Sun-mi rolled her eyes. Honey, I may have gotten popular thanks to your contacts, but you know I've got a solid eye for talent, right? She leaned in, serious now. And by the way, Shinsung Entertainment tried to mess with that kid. And look at them now, crumbling like a stale cookie. she added. They tried to pull their usual tricks, take advantage of a rookie kid actor, but it totally backfired. Jae-young frowned. Wait, aren't you signed with them? Son-mi sighed. Yeah, which is why I'm trying to get out of the damn contract. It was garbage from the start anyway. Honestly, this works out. Jae-young looked at her. So where are you planning to go next? San-mi smirked a little. I've got something interesting in mind. Gonna take it slow for now, though. She gave him a side glance. But hey, if you're thinking ahead, investing in Seongguk might be a smart move. And just like that, Jae-young started seriously considering it. Scene shifts to the next morning at Seongguk's house. It was lunchtime. Today's menu? Seaweed soup. Classic. Landlady Kim passed a steaming bowl to Seongguk. It smelled incredible. Seongguk's mouth was already watering. He couldn't wait. He immediately started slurping it down like he hadn't eaten in days. Who knew manager Kim could cook like this? Kim then handed another bowl to So-young. So-young smiled. Thank you for preparing this meal. Kim waved it off. I'm Seongguk's manager now. This is the least I can do. So-young looked puzzled. You don't even charge anything, and you bring fruits, snacks, all of it? Kim just smiled warmly. Come on now. We're family, aren't we? She added softly. And as family, this much is natural. So-young felt a warmth in her chest. It really did feel like home. Then, out of nowhere, came a tiny voice with big attitude. Seongguk clutched his bowl and said sternly, Don't touch it, as he pushed it away from Minguk. Watching them bicker, Kim laughed. Seems like Minguk copies everything Big Bro does these days, huh? Kim asked. Since he follows you around so much, childcare must be a bit easier, right? But Seongguk's expression turned distant. In the last 2 months, he'd come to a hard truth. Raising a baby is hell. The kid cried like clockwork. Every hour, every night. And no matter what, he never slept unless he was staring directly at Seongguk. Even bathroom breaks were a war. The moment Seongguk left the room, the baby would start wailing. He was hoping for a sibling different from those rude ones he had in his past life. Someone who'd grow up to be his right hand, his ride or die in the future. But man, this was a whole different kind of struggle. Seongguk was straight up exhausted from handling Minguk. He just wanted to call it quits. But then again, Minguk was so damn cute. Every time Seongguk looked at him, his resolve just melted. His heart would start racing out of pure affection. And just like that, he'd go back to feeding him milk like nothing even happened. The frustration? Gone. A baby raising a baby. It was hilariously tragic. The two women watching couldn't help but burst out laughing. Landlady Kim smiled softly, thinking there really couldn't be a more filial little son than Seongguk. Then Kim turned to So-young and asked gently if she had thought about moving. So-young blinked, caught off guard. Kim explained, You've got 2 kids now. That small old house is going to start feeling tighter every day. So-young nodded with a sigh. Yeah, but moving costs money, and we're kind of tight right now. Kim leaned in. But what if money wasn't a problem? So-young looked at her. Confused? What do you mean? Kim smiled and told her that Samjeon Electronics had reached out. They wanted to sign Seongguk as their exclusive brand model. Hearing that, So-young was stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief. Kim went on, saying they'd made an initial offer and would be sending over the full contract details soon. She said, Talk it over with Jisung. It's a big decision. This could seriously change everything for you guys. Kim said with a reassuring nod. But for now, they pushed that talk aside. First, food. As they continued eating, Kim mentioned they needed to stop by the broadcasting station later. But don't worry, she added. The station said they're sending a car. No need to rush. Just then, the doorbell rang. Kim figured it was probably the director and went to answer it. She opened the door casually, totally expecting a familiar face. But then her expression froze. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Seeing her shocked face, So-young and Seongguk both turned to look. And there he was, standing at the door, Michael. Everyone was staring at Michael, totally confused. Seongguk immediately jumped in front of his mom, standing protectively. Why is he here? In his head, he was thinking, this guy, Michael, the one who took Shinsung's side and almost sold us out. What the hell is he doing at our house? But on the other side, Michael just stood there, completely speechless. The air was thick. The whole scene was getting tense, real fast. But just then, Taeyong stepped out from behind Michael. He gave a small bow and apologized. Sorry for startling you like that. He explained that the group really wanted to meet them in person, and they even brought a car so Michael could come and apologize properly. He turned to Michael, who finally stepped forward and gave a deep bow. I was completely wrong. I'm sorry. Everyone went quiet. No one expected that. Seongguk clenched his fists. One lousy apology? That's it? But just then, someone softly said, Thank you for apologizing. He looked back. It was his mom. She said gently, I'm sure you had your reasons. She added, I look forward to working together. and both the manager and Sung-guk had the exact same reaction. They were frustrated. Seriously, why is mom always this nice? But Sung-guk, he wasn't letting it go. Not that easy. He made up his mind. Next time, he's going to be sharper, more cautious. This kind of thing, it won't happen again. To break the awkwardness, Taeyong smiled and asked, "Shall we head out? Everyone's waiting for Sung-guk's family." Scene shifts to MVC Studios. The moment they saw each other, the director, eyes filled with tears, ran straight towards Sung-guk. And on the other side, Sung-guk did the same. They hugged like it was a K-drama reunion, like they were long-lost soulmates finally meeting after a decade apart. Everyone around was smiling. The director even thought, wow, Sung-guk, who's usually so cold, actually greeted me warmly today. While the director was touched, Sung-guk was having a different kind of realization, that he was born to work and he'll probably die working. The dramatic kid strikes again. He was absolutely done with childcare. He just wanted to throw himself back into his career. Somehow, Min-guk really seemed to pick up on that vibe. But setting aside his personal drama, the director turned to So-young and asked her how she was doing. Then his eyes landed on little Min-guk, who looked like he was on the verge of tears. The director blinked. Min-guk had definitely gotten even cuter in the past 2 months. But apparently, Min-guk didn't think the director was all that cute. He burst out crying and stretched his arms towards Sung-guk only. Oh my God, the brotherly bond. The director stood there stunned, but So-young calmly explained, he does that when he can't see Sung-guk. The director turned to look behind. There was Sung-guk, clearly wishing he could disappear and start filming immediately. Also, was it just him, or did manager Kim seem a bit different too? With a big grin, the director asked if they could begin the shoot. He explained that they had 20 episodes left to finish the series. So-young looked a bit shocked at the tight schedule, but manager Kim was like, all good. Then suddenly, the director's eyes lit up. The first broadcast of the new season was going to be the Cherry Blossom Picnic. Scene shifted to a cherry blossom location, beautifully reserved just for the staff. Taehyung and Jaehyun were flabbergasted. Why? Because Sung-guk was wearing the cutest outfit ever, practically looking like a cherry blossom fairy himself. Man, the styling team really outdid themselves. Taehyung nudged Sung-guk and asked, "You really like being complimented, don't you? Because you're going to be showered with them." Sung-guk held his head high with pride. Suddenly, the assistant director shouted, "Filming starts soon. Everyone, please gather." Without missing a beat, Jaehyun scooped up Sung-guk, ready to head to the set. All the staff members were almost fighting over who got to carry Sung-guk next. But just then, a car pulled up outside. From inside, the driver respectfully called out, "Sir, we've arrived at the filming site." It was none other than the vice chairman, Jae-young, Sung-guk's ex-father. He looked out of the window to confirm the location. He wondered silently, do I really need to be here? Earlier, in his office, one of his employees had approached him with business documents. The vice chairman had asked, what's going on with the matter related to Sung-guk? The employee had replied that the contract was already delivered, but then added, however, the child's parents seem overwhelmed by the scale of the contract, so negotiations are moving slowly. That's when the vice chairman made up his mind to handle it personally. The employee had warned him, this contract is kind of excessive considering the kid's experience. Then asked, is the child really worth that much? But the vice chairman couldn't explain it. It was just something about that boy. A strange, compelling feeling, like a blood tie. Back to the present, the vice chairman fixed his suit and braced himself. He stepped out of the car. Jaehyun noticed him right away. He elbowed Taehyung, whispering, look over there. Then said with disbelief, isn't that Samjeon's vice chairman? And upon hearing that, Sung-guk's eyes widened in pure shock. He stood frozen, gaze locked. His ex-father was now standing right there, tall, dignified, and directly in front of him. His thoughts drifted back into history, tracing the shadows of the man standing before him. Born as the eldest son of his grandfather who built Samjeon, he was raised as the heir, the destined successor of the empire. Though his style differed from his grandfather's, he was performance-oriented, like a king. That was the word that defined his father. He was a man who cared about nothing but performance and results, to his wife, to his company, to his children. Taeguk and Mijin, who couldn't meet their father's strict expectations, always suffered from feelings of inferiority. But Sung-guk? He was the child who simply kicked aside his father's expectations and climbed even higher. He always felt proud of how much of a genius he was. But anyway, it wasn't a comfortable relationship between his past life self and his father. It was kind of annoying, but as his offspring, he couldn't do anything about it. Switch to present. He was now standing right in front of Songguk. By mistake, he called him father, and the man even leaned forward. Songguk instantly realized his slip and tried to shut his mouth. Jaehyung leaned closer, gently greeting the little Songguk. He asked if Songguk remembered him from the ad shoot, but Songguk rudely denied it. To his reply, Jaehyung raised a brow and asked, "Really? Then why did you just call me father?" And Songguk tried to deny it, but it was already too late. Vice Chairman added calmly, "I clearly heard it." Sung turned his head to look elsewhere, flustered. But Jaehyung wasn't letting go. "I definitely heard it," he repeated. Songguk sighed internally. He realized just how persistent this man truly was. Suddenly, Jaehyung noticed a voice calling from behind. It was the director and So-young, rushing toward him with urgency. He calmly told them that he had just wanted to quietly see Songguk and leave, and apologized for disrupting the filming. Hearing that, both the director and So-young were visibly shocked. The vice chairman explained that the bright eyes of Songguk reminded him of his younger self. He continued, "Seeing him like this makes me even more certain." But before continuing further, he turned to So-young and asked if she had reviewed the contract yet. So-young looked confused, unsure what to say. Without wasting any more time, he began walking again and casually asked if there was anything they wanted to add to the contract. On that cue, Songguk boldly replied, "Money." To save him from embarrassment, So-young instantly rushed forward and clamped her hand over his mouth. But Jaehyung, who had already heard the word clearly, burst out laughing. While gently patting Songguk's head, he said he would definitely prepare money for him. And with a soft, knowing smile, he told So-young that he'd be ready to see them again whenever they were. So-young muttered, "Sure, sir." And with that, he quietly took his leave from there. Songguk had quite a blush on his face. He never expected to be involved with his father in this life. He wanted the bond between them to be the same as in his previous life. His father had trusted him deeply in the past, and he had never disappointed him. He quietly decided he would do the same in this life too. Suddenly, the director resumed the filming. It pulled Songguk out of his thoughts and reminded him to focus on what really mattered, for now. Finally, the shoot started. It was the spring picnic special. The story continued, and a few days later, they shot the Children's Day special. The same went for the summer vacation special. With each episode, his popularity grew, and one day, outside the studio, fans had gathered in huge numbers, madly excited for the shoot. They went wild for Songguk, and it was pure chaos. Songguk and So-young tried to stay focused, while the assistant director sighed. It had become a daily routine now. Looking at his mother, Songguk asked her to put him down. He began walking, taking each step with careful pride. Along with the fame of Just Baby, the Just group, who never neglected concerts and album releases, had become a top idol force in the music industry over the past half year. Of course, Songguk also filmed several top-tier commercials and became the hottest blue chip in advertising. He was quietly delighted by his success. On top of that, the director also received huge bonuses. With everyone rising to success together, it was clear Just Baby didn't have much time left. Probably, the filming after next would be their final episode. And with that thought, Songguk prepared himself to move ahead. It was bittersweet. As he was walking, suddenly, from the darkness beside him, an unknown hand reached out. This stranger grabbed Songguk's small hand. Songguk tensed, eyes wide with shock. Someone was standing in the shadows, asking Songguk for a favor. He was truly scared in that moment. Who could it be? What did they want? What's about to happen? Please stay tuned to see how this mystery unfolds. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and one last favor. Leave a comment and tell us what you think about this story. Did you enjoy it or not? Songguk was shaking, staring at the hand reaching out from the darkness. His eyes widened in shock, not even able to process who the hell it was. But just as he was about to lose it, he realized it was Taehyung, flashing him a smirk and telling him to keep quiet. Taehyung looked more freaked out than Songguk. The look on Songguk's face, pure confusion and a bit of irritation. Like, why the hell is he acting like this? Taehyung then bowed toward Songguk, asking if he could help him out. Before they could get into it, the assistant director interrupted, asking what was going on. Blushing, Taehyung sheepishly admitted that he needed Songguk's help to choose the title track for their new album. He led Songguk over to where everyone was waiting to hear his pick, and the assistant director seized the moment, handing Songguk a mic. The lead director, looking totally confused, asked, "What exactly are we doing here?" On camera, Taehyung explained that they were about to drop an album. "All the songs are ready, but we can't decide on the title track. we've got too many opinions within the group. So, Taeyong asked Sung-guk to make the call. The director, raising an eyebrow, asked if it was really okay to let a 3-year-old pick, but Sung-guk was already sitting there, listening to the tracks with a serious look on his face. Taeyong chuckled, saying they had hesitated at first too, but over the past year, Sung-guk had really helped shape who they were. They'd learned a lot about childcare, even if it got messy sometimes, and now they wanted to leave Sung-guk's mark on the album. Everyone was staring at him, genuinely waiting for his verdict. After a moment of deep concentration, Sung-guk pulled off the headphones, his expression dead serious. Jaehyun asked, "So, what do you think?" And Sung-guk just gave a little smirk. He was totally confident. He knew they'd asked him because he had the future all figured out. Without missing a beat, he pointed at a CD that had the title, "It's a Lie." Jaehyun breathed a sigh of relief. It was the title he'd hoped for. But Lucas? Not so much. He wasn't feeling it. The director asked, "Which song is that?" And Taeyong answered, "It's the track Haeyeon helped produce." He went on, explaining that out of the 3 candidates, it was the most unique, the one that really stood out. Sung-guk was 100% sure about his choice. In his past life, It's a Lie was a B-side, but it ended up dominating the charts for 5 straight weeks. Even someone like him, who didn't care much for music, remembered the lyrics. He knew if it became the title track, it would blow up. Lucas gave it one last shot, trying to convince Sung-guk to pick Way to You instead. But Sung-guk wasn't having it. He straight up said no. He grabbed the title track CD with no hesitation and walked right over to show it to Taehyung. His expression said it all. He was dead set on making this the title track. No second thoughts. Taehyung respected his decision, nodded, and agreed to go with it. With that, everyone locked in, determined to give it their all to promote the song. Finally, the big day came. The Just Baby final episode party. So-young nudged Sung-guk forward, urging him into a dark room. He stepped in, confused as hell, eyes darting around, trying to figure out what was going on. The vibe in the room felt off. He could sense that the Just group was up to something. But hey, he had to play his part as the little kid, so he walked in anyway. Boom. Crackers popped, and the group brought out a cake, shouting, "Happy birthday!" Everyone broke into the birthday song, singing with smiles and laughter. The director explained that the Just group had planned it all themselves. They really wanted to celebrate Sung-guk's birthday properly. All eyes were on Sung-guk now. He was staring at the floor, expression unrateable. Then, out of nowhere, he looked up, voice steady, eyes shining with joy as he thanked them. Sure, he expected something like this, but actually being celebrated, it hit different. And just like that, the director rolled out the big surprise, premium Korean beef for everyone. Everyone gasped, but Sung-guk, his eyes practically sparkled. He was starving. Lucas was literally crying tears of joy as he stuffed his face. Meanwhile, Sung-guk was treating the meal like a boss fight, devouring it with determination. They all raised their glasses, wine and beer for the adults, milk for Sung-guk, with a cheer. The party turned wild. Laughter, clinking glasses, full hearts. It was unforgettable. So-young stood there, touched by the whole moment. Then someone approached her from behind, catching her off guard. She turned, confused. The man held a gift and said he was sent by Vice Chairman J.J. Young. Inside the box, wild ginseng. So-young was shocked in a good way. He also handed her a note asking her to take another look at the contract. Beaming, she nodded and said they'd come by as soon as possible. Cut to the outside of a towering building. Serious vibes. Sung-guk, alongside his mom and manager, was walking forward. His focus was intense, eyes locked in, mind sharp. Because he knew one thing for sure. His dad never lost at anything. And now he was pumped, ready to find out exactly what his father was planning. As they stepped inside the building, a well-dressed lady greeted them with a polite smile. She informed them that the vice chairman was already waiting for their arrival. Just then, the doors swung open, letting in a soft beam of light from inside the room. And right there, standing in that light, was the vice chairman himself. Everyone felt a slight wave of nerves ripple through them. Meeting someone like him wasn't exactly casual, but with a warm and welcoming smile, he greeted them kindly. They took their seats across from him as tea and snacks were served on the table. Sung-guk froze for a second. These were the exact cookies he loved in his past life, a small, unexpected hit of nostalgia. While the manager dove into the conversation, So-young and Sung-guk were low-key, just vibing with the tea and cookies, with calm curiosity. Jae-young asked if they had made any decisions regarding the contract offer. The manager, carefully choosing words, mentioned that the 3-year contract and 150 million won offer seemed a bit much. At the sound of 150 million won, Sung-guk literally popped the cookie out of his mouth mid-bite. He glanced sharply at his ex-father, who sat there with that same gentle smile on his face. Sung-guk smiled back, but deep down, he knew that smile. That wasn't just kindness. There was definitely something more going on. He stared at his father, wondering, this is VIP treatment, the kind only A-list celebs get. What the hell is he planning? The manager, clearly unsure, finally asked, why such a huge offer? The vice chairman replied smoothly, saying it was simply an investment. But Sung-guk wasn't buying it just yet. Then the secretary approached So-young, handing her a packet detailing a scholarship program designed especially for Sung-guk. He explained that the Samjeon Group sought out exceptional talents and offered full support to help them grow. So-young was taken aback. Her child being recognized as a talented kid by the massive Samjeon Group, that was beyond her imagination. To her even bigger surprise, the vice chairman said straight up, in his eyes, Sung-guk wasn't just talented, he was special. He continued calmly, saying with the right support, Sung-guk could grow into an exceptional man. So-young glanced at her son. His face showed no emotion at all. She was just about to speak, maybe to soften the moment a little, but Sung-guk placed his hands on the table and said firmly, of course. His eyes were filled with sincerity and a quiet but unwavering confidence. In his mind, he remembered how his father used to scout and nurture gifted individuals in his past life too. Looking at his ex-father now, he thought to himself, yeah, his judgment hasn't changed. He's spot on. With passion burning in his eyes, he declared boldly that he'd grow to be more capable than any other talented person out there. So-young nearly melted into her seat, half mortified by her son's boldness. But the vice chairman? He loved it. He even commented that not even his own child had that kind of fire. And that spirit was exactly why he wanted to support Sung-guk even more. He then announced he'd be sending them a revised contract draft, this time more detailed, which completely shocked So-young and the manager. Rising from his seat, he explained that the contract was crafted purely to benefit Sung-guk, and he urged them to think it over carefully. Later that night, at home, Sung-guk's dad quietly watched So-young, exhausted from putting both kids to bed. She brought up the contract, asking what he thought, but he just looked as puzzled as she felt. From his perspective, the contract was insanely generous, almost too good to be real. But So-young couldn't shake the fear. Because when someone as high up as the vice chairman was personally watching her son, that kind of attention could come with a price. She was scared. If they accepted something that looked too perfect, what if it turned out to be a trap? What if something went terribly wrong? Outside the door, Sung-guk was quietly listening to every word. He nodded slowly. It all made sense. To parents who'd never even saved a few million won, an offer of 100 million was overwhelming, almost frightening. It felt like being a flea in a jar. Just like how a flea that grows up inside a jar will keep jumping only as high as the lid, even after the lid is gone. Because they had grown up poor, the first reaction to anything big, especially money or opportunity, was fear. A fear so deep it drowned out hope. Sung-guk knew that was the cruelest part of poverty. It doesn't just take away comforts, it convinces people they shouldn't even reach for more. Meanwhile, inside the house, So-young's husband gently placed his hand on her shoulder. Should we accept the contract or not? He asked, his voice low but serious. Hearing that, Sung-guk, who had been quietly watching from behind, froze. He hadn't expected him to say that. He spoke up, trying to explain. This contract could change everything for Sung-guk. He wouldn't have to live paycheck to paycheck like them. He could finally have choices, stability. He could study in good schools, get into amazing colleges, land a great job. A whole new world could open for him. And when he mentioned that Sung-guk might even live a life like that of the Samjeon vice chairman, So-young couldn't hide her astonishment. He continued, if the contract went through, even their family could think of building a better life. Something bigger, something new. And Sung-guk, he agreed with every single word his dad said. If there was even a sliver of hope for a life better than this, he wanted to take it. He had to take it. The next morning came, crisp and quiet. And just like clockwork, the same secretary showed up at their door once again. The secretary looked genuinely pleased. Finally, they were seriously discussing the contract. Progress at last. So-young, cautious but hopeful, asked him directly, did you really agree to the changes we requested? In response, the secretary handed over the revised contract. The duration had been reduced from 3 years to 2 years, but in turn, the signing bonus had dropped from 150 million won to 100 million. So Young smiled with relief. It was still an incredible offer. Even Song-guk leaned in, trying to peek at the papers himself, though he couldn't quite get a clear look. But just as they were getting ready to move forward with the signing, the secretary suddenly shifted gears. He calmly opened his briefcase again. From inside, he pulled out another document, setting it on the table with a subtle thud. "There's also a section we'd like to revise a bit," he said smoothly. The moment those words hit, So Young, the manager, and even little Sung-guk all had the same reaction. Eyebrows up, eyes wide. "Wait, what now?" So Young felt her heart tighten with anxiety. What kind of contract terms were they trying to change now? The secretary began calmly. "There are just two small things I'd like to go over," and pulled out two thick documents from his briefcase. But before he could say more, Song-guk suddenly reached forward and snatched the documents from his hands with a sharp glare. Everyone froze in surprise. But Song-guk's eyes were scanning the papers intently, suspicion flaring. The secretary, though startled, gently requested, "Could you hand those back, please? They're documents about stock and an apartment." Song-guk narrowed his eyes. "Stock and apartment?" he asked, utterly confused. The secretary looked stunned. "Wait, you can read that?" Eyes gleaming with curiosity, Song-guk leaned forward. "Yes. What is this about, secretary?" The secretary looked utterly speechless. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Observing his expression, Song-guk understood. He had genuinely shocked him. Acting like a clueless child was growing tiresome, but if it helped uncover his father's tactics, he was ready to continue the act. Quickly shifting tone, he blinked adorably, voice soft and watery. "What's this, mister? Stock? Apartment?" Even So Young was confused. "Wait, you can read, Guk?" With a cheeky grin, Song-guk replied, "Yes, Mom, I can read." The secretary was stunned. Stunned? A 3-year-old reading legal terms? This was beyond talent. It was genius. He recalled the vice chairman's words. Now I see what he meant. With an excited laugh, he finally began explaining. "Since you reduced the contract duration, the fee also dropped to 100 million won. But in exchange," he continued, "we want to offer Samjeon Electronics stock worth 15 million won to the parents." So Young gasped. That was an entirely different kind of reward. He added, "Also, when Samjeon's new premium apartment complex in Jamsil is complete in 2 years, we'll offer you a special 34 Pyong unit." At that, a memory stirred in Song-guk's mind. So Young was left speechless by the overwhelming generosity, but Song-guk stayed focused, eyes combing through the documents again. Something felt off, and then he saw it, a small clause buried in legal jargon. If the 2-year term isn't fulfilled, all the gifted stock must be returned, with the taxes borne by the recipient. Exactly like his father, offering rewards that turn into shackles. Sweet temptations dangled like bait, the strategy of Jihan Jae-young. Still, Song-guk didn't back down. "I want all of it," he said firmly to the secretary. But So Young pulled him back. "Wait." Song-guk's eyes filled with frustration. He knew the value of those stocks. He knew the future of real estate in Jamsil. This contract was gold. Tears welled up in his eyes. So Young grew upset, but the manager stepped in quietly, motioning her aside. "We should take it," she said. "It's a rare opportunity for Song-guk, for your family." So Young paused, listening carefully. The manager then turned to the secretary. "Thank you for the generous terms. However, it's still a heavy contract for just an individual." The secretary looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" She smiled. "We're planning to establish a company, one solely dedicated to Song-guk's career." One-person agency?" the secretary asked, eyes lighting up. "Yes," she said proudly. "It'll exist just for him." Hearing this, Song-guk's face lit up. He had secretly dreamed of this, starting small, but building a global empire. He grinned. "The first company, with my name." While the idea had come from the manager, it was something Song-guk had quietly envisioned days ago. The secretary, visibly impressed, promised to help them set it up. And with that, Song-guk pressed his tiny thumb to the contract, sealing the deal. A wave of joy washed over everyone. It was done. A new future had just begun. The sun had set and night embraced the sky. Song-guk's father sat quietly, skimming through the contract, documents on stocks, and the apartment offer. Stocks, apartment, and our son, reading? He sat there in awe. So many incredible things happened today, he murmured to himself. Everything else, money, property, he could somehow digest. But Song-guk's reading ability at such a young age, that left him stunned. Is he really that genius? Overwhelmed, he pulled Song-guk into a tight hug, pride bursting from his chest. But as always, Song-guk awkwardly frowned. He never liked being hugged. At that moment, So Young entered, placing a freshly cooked meal on the table. Everyone's eyes widened in surprise, including little Min-guk. I thought, since we're getting so much money now, we can enjoy a little luxury, So-young smiled. Sung-guk's eyes locked onto the glistening meat. Since birth, this was the first time he'd get to really eat meat. So-young looked at him warmly. Do you like it? Obviously, Sung-guk replied with a grin. Spoons in hand, he was ready to attack the feast, pure excitement lighting up his face. Laughter and warmth filled the room as the family shared the meal. For a moment, everything felt perfect. A truly happy family. Between bites, So-young turned to her husband. How was work today? He smiled. I actually asked my boss if I could try something on my own. Everyone looked at him with curiosity. He said I should open my own shop, he continued, and a round of excitement buzzed through the table. He glanced at Sung-guk. Thanks to you, we now have enough money to rent a commercial space. Sung-guk looked up proudly. I'll support you too, Dad. His father gently patted his head. Thank you, son. And for the first time in this life, Sung-guk felt a quiet joy that he was making a real difference. Scene shifted to Seon-mi, pacing near the window. Phone pressed to her ear as she spoke with the vice chairman's secretary, her tone sharp and probing. She paused, her brows knitting the moment she heard the news. They'd already signed the contract. Her lips tightened and she muttered under her breath. Shh! So they really went through with it. As she continued the call, unaware, a man sat quietly in the shadows of the room, just a few feet behind her, listening to every word with a smirk. After a moment, Seon-mi ended the call and slowly turned, her eyes narrowing as they met the figure behind her. And there he was, stepping forward into the light with that same twisted grin. It was none other than Shin Sung-jung, the snake who'd once been thrown in jail. All thanks to Sung-guk. He sat back, thoughts spinning as he reflected bitterly on everything that damn kid had pulled off so far. With a sudden burst of rage, he slammed his fist on the table, growling through clenched teeth. That brat and his whole damn family, bastards! He was fuming now, unable to contain the heat boiling in his chest. His eyes burned red with fury. This wasn't something he could just let slide anymore. As he began ranting and plotting some twisted payback, Seon-mi quickly shut him down, clearly not on board with his reckless plan. She reminded him coldly, That kid's not the same anymore, Shin-sung. Then she snapped, You seriously want to lay hands on the vice chairman's prized investment? You out of your mind? Her words hit hard, and frustration spread across his face. She turned her back to him, her voice sharp. Judging by that contract, the vice chairman's got big dreams tied to that boy. And believe me, he won't let you walk away if you mess with Sung-guk, she added without looking back. Shin-sung clenched his fists, jaw tightening. He felt cornered, powerless. He shouted at her, full of spite. What the hell are you even saying? Get the hell out! As she reached for the contract renewal papers, he assumed she was on his side, but her silence said otherwise. She held the documents in her hand, paused, then stared at them with a smirk. Without a second thought, she ripped them in half and declared proudly, I'm not that same Seon-mi who signed that contract 7 years ago. The scene shifts to Sung-guk's house. He was lying back, relaxing, with cucumber slices neatly placed on his face. It felt strangely good. Ever since signing that exclusive contract with Samjeon, things around him had changed a lot. First off, Manager Kim had been swamped with non-stop paperwork. His dad, after a serious family meeting, decided to open a Bassam restaurant near the Jamsil apartment in 2 years. He was throwing himself into learning cooking skills like his life depended on it. And his mom? She was always busy trying to calm down a crying Min-guk. Amidst all that chaos, she still found time to care for her skin, especially in this dry weather. In his past life, Sung-guk used dropped tens of thousands of won for one esthetician session. But now, these weird little cucumber slices felt even better. Maybe because Mom was the one who placed them. There was nothing he disliked anymore. Mom would say proudly, Our son's such a good boy. She told him, Stay with Min-guk. I'm just going to hang the laundry and be right back. Everything felt so peaceful. Then suddenly, Sung-guk remembered it was time for the chart announcement. He quickly looked over at the TV screen, just as the week's top 10 music chart came up. Taking first place again was Lies by Just, 10 weeks in a row at number 1. They were killing it, and all thanks to the track that Seongguk had picked. They were seriously thriving now. Sung-guk thought to himself, they better remember to repay me someday. Just then, knock knock. Someone from Samjeon was at the door. Sung-guk's eyes shot open. He dashed toward the door. When it swung open, there stood some guy with his face half covered, clearly trying not to be recognized. Both Song-guk and So-young stared, confused, trying to figure out who it could be. Song-guk squinted, trying to see past the man's sunglasses. But suddenly, the guy rushed forward and tried to hug him out of nowhere. So-young quickly stepped in, blocking him instinctively. The stranger apologized and slowly removed his cap and sunglasses. And underneath was none other than the actress, Mi Seon-mi. Both So-young and Song-guk were stunned, eyes wide, frozen in disbelief. Sunmi quietly observed the cozy interior of Song-guk's house while So-young served her a warm cup of tea. She gently accepted the tea, her hands slightly trembling. Just as she was about to take a sip, So-young looked at her and asked, "What brings you here, really?" At that, Sunmi lowered her gaze and softly apologized. So-young was puzzled by the sudden apology. "Why are you apologizing all of a sudden?" Sunmi explained. "Because your family has been through so much, and it's because of me." She said, "If I hadn't recommended Shinsung Entertainment back then, I genuinely saw potential in Song-guk and wanted to work with him. I never imagined Shinsung would stoop that low." Song-guk remembered how, even in his previous life, Im Seon-mi and Shin Sung-jung had always been strictly business, never anything deeper. Sure, she was cunning, but beyond her scandal with his father, she didn't really hurt anyone with intent. So he looked her in the eyes and nodded. He accepted her apology. That left Seon-mi completely stunned. "Are you seriously accepting it?" she asked, voice trembling. Meanwhile, So-young felt deeply moved by how Seon-mi had come all this way to speak sincerely. So-young thanked her. And hearing those words, something in Seon-mi cracked a little. Her eyes shimmered with tears. Overcome with emotion, she hugged So-young tightly and whispered, "You feel like family to me now." But just then, cutting through the emotional moment, Song-guk raised a sharp question. "Why did you say you came from the Samjeon group?" His mother glanced at him, slightly flustered, but Seon-mi smiled, clearly impressed by his boldness. She replied, "I came to deliver this." In her hand was a document, an official file related to the Samjeon contract. So-young reached out, "Oh, give it to me." But Seon-mi held on to it for a moment. Blushing a little, she said, "Before I hand this over," with a shy smile, she brought up the Sewon-guk one-person agency and asked, "Is there any chance I could join too?" Song-guk's eyes widened. He stared at her, completely thrown off. "Wait, you want to join?" So-young was stunned. She couldn't believe how fast the news had already spread. Seon-mi gave a sheepish smile and admitted, "I begged Secretary Yang to tell me about it." She revealed, "My exclusive contract with Shinsung Entertainment just ended. I was honestly exhausted working with them," she added, her voice carrying genuine wariness. "Now I want to be with an agency that treats its actors like family." The word family hit So-young right in the heart, making her feel unexpectedly emotional. Seon-mi gently held So-young's shoulder, her expression soft, almost pleading. "I'm famous. I make good money. I can help you build the agency from the ground up." In that moment, to So-young, she felt like an angel descending into their lives. But deep in her mind, Seon-mi was only focused on getting a position of control, so she could eventually steer the agency to her advantage. She asked So-young to sign the contract. So-young, convinced by her sincerity, agreed. But before the deal could be sealed, Song-guk firmly refused. Everyone turned to look at him, surprised by the intensity in his voice. He stood tall and unshaken, confident, unwavering in his decision to reject Seon-mi. His words caught Seon-mi completely off guard. She was left speechless. So-young, flustered, scolded him. "What's wrong with you?" Seon-mi cautiously asked. "Can you tell me why?" Song-guk lay on the floor, eyes turned away, refusing to give a reason. "No." That's all he said. So-young, embarrassed, told Seon-mi not to mind him and suggested they speak with the manager instead. But Song-guk suddenly burst into a tantrum, crying loudly and refusing to let it go. So-young was mortified. "Stop it, Song-guk," she pleaded, trying to calm him down. Their shouting and crying reached little Min-guk's ears. He woke up with tears in his eyes, ready to let out a wail. Hearing his cries, So-young quickly rushed to his side. Once So-young left, Seon-mi's expression changed. She grew serious and turned to Song-guk. "Tell me the real reason," she demanded. She tried to gently touch his cheek, attempting to manipulate him with affection. But Song-guk smacked her hand away without hesitation. With clear, piercing eyes, he said, "Your true intentions are obvious. You're only thinking about the future value of the company and planning a small investment to secure your control. And that's not the kind of person I want in my agency," he said without flinching. "My company will be filled with my people, people who believe, not opportunists who come and go. and especially not a woman who can leak information to my father so easily. He raised his finger and pointed it at her, rejecting her offer with every ounce of resolve in his heart. Sunmi was clearly frustrated at Songguk, but before she could react, So-young appeared at the doorway. With a practiced smile, Sunmi greeted So-young gently and said she'd take her leave for today. She turned with a darker tone in her voice, saying, "I wanted to join your agency even more now, but I guess it needs sincerity." Songguk shrugged and replied coolly, "Try all you want." She slid the documents forward across the table. "Here are the papers Samjeon sent," she said before turning to leave. Putting on her sunglasses and pulling her cap down low, she headed for the door. Just before stepping out, she flashed a soft, unreadable smile at Songguk. It wasn't that Songguk didn't recognize her value, but he wanted someone who genuinely saw the agency as a family, not just a stepping stone. And right then, a booming voice came from behind. "Songguk, you rascal!" He froze in place. She came charging in, yelling, "What kind of manners are those in front of Sonmi?" She kept going. She must have felt so humiliated. She left in a flash. Songguk tried to explain, but she wasn't having it. Trying to escape her scolding, he handed her the contract papers. "Here, check these." She started opening the envelope, but her lecture didn't pause for even a second. That is, until her expression suddenly changed, because the documents inside were for Songguk's exclusive ad shoot with Samjeon Electronics. A few days later, a car rolled to a stop in front of a beautiful house nestled in a stunning location. Both Songguk and So-young were awestruck by the scenery. As So-young admired the place, the front door opened, and out walked the director. He greeted them warmly, calling out, "Songguk, So-young!" They both lit up upon seeing him, happy and surprised to have him directing the shoot. So-young offered her congratulations with a big smile. The director looked over Songguk and said, "You've gotten even more handsome," making the boy beam with pride. He stood tall, dressed impeccably in the outfit sent by Samjeon Group, radiating confidence. That is, until he realized the brand name was Petit Cochon, which literally meant little pig in French. Songguk exploded, shouting, "I'm already sensitive about being chubby, and now this!" Just then, another car pulled up. Inside that sleek vehicle sat none other than the vice chairman. He looked out the window, watching the squabble between Songguk and the director. A gentle smile curved his lips as he quietly enjoyed the moment. The man seated beside him leaned in and asked, "Is this the kid you've decided to sponsor?" With a grave nod and a proud look in his eyes, the vice chairman replied, "Yes, father." The spotlight subtly shifted, revealing the man next to him, none other than John Jushin, Songguk's grandfather. Please comment if this story should be continued or dropped from now. Thanks for watching.